Thank you very much. I will call the WSESD board meeting to order at 6:03. The meeting of the WSESD will come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we will strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. A member of the public or of the public body has technical difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert us by email. In the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue the meeting if necessary to time and place certain. Please note that all votes will be taken. All votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. So we will move along to the clerk's report, the approval of the minutes for September 27th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd like to amend. Oh, sorry. So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
So thank you, Anne and Sean. And
Now, amendments.
now, Deborah, you have an amendment?
Yes, these are for the minutes of September 27th.
Yes.
On page 4, and I'm quoting, this policy, referring to D7, volunteers and work study students, only refers to volunteers, not parents driving their own children or other children. And I just want to qualify that because it implies a laissez-faire attitude to parents picking up other children. And I know every school has strict protocols in place concerning who can pick up children other than their own. So I just want to qualify that. And also on that same page, there's another concern that I have, and I'm quoting, MG asked if anyone from the Policy and Amendment Committee had contacted the Communications Council or Leadership Councils. There was no response. That occurs at the very end of the discourse about this policy, and I went through the footage, and that's not how this discourse concluded at that moment. In addition, regarding the Communications Council, the website currently lists members on that committee before the March 1st election, and therefore it's out of date. And in addition, the Communications Council recently posted an agenda for a September 23rd meeting, and there has been no follow-up minutes posted as of this morning. So I'm not even sure who posted that meeting. And then the other reference in that quotation to leadership councils, the Policy and Amendment Committee realizes that it does not have authority to reach out to leadership councils regarding procedures. To state the obvious, board establishes policy, administration implements that policy. And in the collaboration in these meetings, I know that the superintendent has reached out to leadership councils with questions about protocols, and those comments come back to the policy committee. So in terms of a real collaboration that's going on at this point. So again, I just want to say that this policy committee welcomes all comments from every board member, from every administrator, from every community member, regardless of committees, subcommittees. So please reach out and send emails. So those are the two amendments to the minutes that I proposed. Do I make a motion to that effect?
Yes.
I so move to amend the minutes of September 27th, both in terms of the quotation having to do with parents driving their own children or other children, as well as reaching out to communications council and leadership councils.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tim. So,
There's a hand up.
sure.
Ricky Rosati.
Thank you. So I believe, unless I'm wrong, that the 27th was the meeting I came and asked about any concerns about the FDA, no, I'm sorry, the USDA application forms about the school meals and how they asked for too much information. And I didn't see that in the notes.
I actually wasn't at that meeting, so I'm wondering if it might. Is there any way that you can send me an email indicating what you think should have been in there? And I can say that the supervisory union board addresses food services. That's my understanding. And I don't know whether it's more appropriate to be addressed by that board. But if you want to send me an email with what it is you feel should have been in the minutes, then I can see what I can do to pass it along to whoever needs to respond to that question.
What is your email?
It would be kelly.young at WSES.
Can you?
I'm sorry, it's K Young. I'm sorry.
The K Young at WSESDBT.org.
I apologize. I don't use the email myself. So
Okay, thank you.
thank you very much for your comment. Tim?
Just to further respond there, if the item was not germane to the business of the SD and rather was the business of the SU, then the note taker would not include it in the minutes for the SD.
Okay, thank you very much. But either way, I will pass it along to someone on the, I will pass it along to that board. Thank you. Any other hands up? No? Okay. So all those in favor of Deborah's motion to amend the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Was that the last person? Was that in?
Sorry, that's an aye. Yes,
Okay,
I just
thank
was
you
late.
very much. Thank you. So were there any opposed? Okay, thank you. So now I believe we need to move along to the regular motion. All those in favor of approving the minutes with the amendment made by Deborah, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move along to the finances. Can I have a motion to approve the warrants of September 12th, 2022 in the amount of $117,387.40. September 19th, 2022 in the amount of $284,644.31. September 26th, 2022 in the amount of $1,045,048.10. October 3rd, 2022 in the amount of $608,530.83. And the payrolls of September 9, 2022 in the amount of $1,385,319.37. And September 23, 2022 in the amount of $1,504,228.60. Is there a motion to approve? Thank you very much, Sean. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Anne. All those in favor of approving the warrants and payrolls as listed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. We will move along to the parliamentarian. You should have seen or should see on the agenda that there is a motion for, I'll just read the motion. So I would entertain a motion, shall the WSESD board employ Barbara Lee Luskin to serve as parliamentarian to help the WSESD board learn Robert's Rules of Order. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Anne. All those in favor of,
Discussion, please.
oh, sure.
I can't remember what the dollar amount for that was.
She
I looked it over, but I don't have it right from me.
she gave a dollar amount. I guess it. I don't see it on here, but it's $250 a meeting is what she would be charging us.
Okay,
So
thank you.
thank you, Sean, for asking that question. Any other questions or discussion?
How long would the period be? The higher period?
Well, it hasn't really been determined. I think once we, I think we've talked about potentially 4 meetings and with the possibility of more.
And I just realized I violated parliamentary rules by just speaking up, which is why we need her.
That's right. Okay,
Michelle Green has a hand up.
sure. Thank you.
Hey. Yeah, I'm wondering, I guess I just want to talk about the necessity of her. I'm wondering if we had any other options. When I looked at her resume, it seems like her being a moderator, which is a significant role in our community, but that seems to be her experience. And I guess I'm just wondering, like, how, we just authorized several $100s for board members to own Robert's Rules and have in our back pocket. Personally, I'd like to see us, not weaponize them and support each other and just learning and doing our best. And maybe even having a discussion about Robert's Rules for small boards so that it's not so intimidating and it makes it a little bit easier before we think of spending more money. Just my thought. Or I would like to, see a few more options of who might be available for this kind of support. I don't know. I know the VSBA did a webinar. I don't know if that's good enough, but I just felt like those things came up as a conversation point that I'd like to chat with our board about. I don't know how she was found or anything.
Virginia Ray has a comment.
Sure. Thank you.
Virginia. Can't hear you. Gotta unmute. Still can't hear you. There you go.
I'm sorry, how many meetings do you anticipate it might require of her time?
Well, we discussed 4 meetings, but it sounds like the needs of the board, she would be flexible for the needs of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Any other questions or discussion?
Oh, hey, Sean. Jackie Reynolds, Brattleboro. I just wondered, similar to Michelle, if an RFP had gone out or if this was just if anybody else had been talked to or, get your words clear. If any other trainers had been spoken to or this was just the only person who could possibly do it, if there were options for the board to compare. Thanks.
I would ask Frank if you can clarify for us what our requirement for that is, because we certainly would like to follow whatever rules we necessary.
So there are something called procurement methods that we follow with that are very much aligned with the federal procurement rules. And for acquiring services at this level that you're talking about, which is clearly less than $10,000, there is no bid requirement. So it is a matter of determining if the service meets your needs, if it's timely, if it's readily available. which is kind of the same thing. So it's there is no formal specification RFP and advertising process.
So, I'm sorry. So the $10,000, is that like the first hurdle?
Well, the state actually has recently changed the state law. It was $15,000 and now it's $40,000. So those are actually the benchmarks that turn on a requirement for a public bid. Less than that, there is in our requisition forms that all of our teachers, administrators, everyone uses to procure services. There is a criteria where you actually identify those items that I just mentioned. The criteria is, I think it may be as many as 8. Maybe some of you that fill out requisition remember more of them. I don't fill out requisitions, but those are the characteristics that every vendor choice is. We're supposed to represent the rationale. It's not supposed to be a random event. So price is one of those several criteria, but anything below the state bid law does not require the lowest price to be the determining factor. But there does need to be a rationale.
Thank you, Frank.
Michelle had a hand up.
Sure.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Yep, I have a question for Frank. I'm wondering, Frank, if you could give us some type of awareness on where our board development budget is right now, going into as we're halfway through the year. And I didn't catch an answer. I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't ask it clearly. I'm just wondering how many other options we considered before this proposal came through.
Sure, I can respond to that. I just happen to be. I just ate some peanuts, so and I don't have any water, but but yes, no, I just happened to log into the accounting system moments ago, so I can answer that in just a moment. So board development, we just went over account codes and all of those good things. So I have a general idea where I'm going to find that. Finance committee probably could almost beat me to it. District code 3096 is district wide, right? Okay, so this is well, this probably would be under the category of professional service. And as you probably recall, the board added significant resources to that line item this time last year when the SD budget was being put together. So I imagine folks remember that we more than doubled that budget. So professional services, 103,000 is the budget. Year to date is 49,000. So there's still about 50,000 in the professional services budget available.
Thank you.
Any questions from public?
Okay. The question's been called. I think we have to. Thank you for your interest in commenting.
The other half of my question, sorry, that I asked was that, are there other options? Did we have a few options?
There was this person came recommended. There were a few people who were asked, I believe. I'm not sure that it's proper for me to name the people who were asked because I don't believe any one of them is here. I can certainly communicate to the board independently, but there were 2 or 3 other people who I believe were inquired of, and I believe that this is the person who was very well recommended, but the other persons had other commitments that they couldn't commit to assisting our board so that we are learning proper Robert's rules and learning how to follow proper Robert's rules. Does that answer your question, Michelle?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much for the question. So it sounds like the motion has been called. And so all those in favor of employing Deborah Lee Luskin to serve as parliamentarian to help the WSESD board learn Robert's rules, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so then we need to do a roll call. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, so there is Deborah and Lona and Ann, Sean, Tim, and is there anyone online with their hand up?
Liz and Emily have their hands up.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone who is opposed, please put your hand up.
That's Michelle.
Michelle has hand up.
Thank you very much. So
Thank you.
we'll communicate with her and let her know that we are. So moving on to a presentation of trauma-informed practices, social emotional learning. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'm excited to have the opportunity to present some work that we've started at UHS in August and next steps that we'll be taking as a supervisory union in regards to trauma-informed practices and professional development. We also have Beth Connolly here from Putney Central School, who will also be sharing some extensions around social emotional learning that connect with Hannah's presentation around trauma-informed. So Hannah's going to talk a bit about the work done in August, next steps for BUHS, and then where we're looking to turn towards supporting the entire school system. And then Beth will be sharing some examples, some basic examples of tier 1 practices and good best practice. So I'll turn it over to Hannah. We'll be prepared to answer questions. So feel free to ask when those come up at the conclusion of our presentation. And then we'll go from there. So Hannah Parker is the brand new Dean of Students at BUHS. She's doing a great job.
Sorry I was late, so I cross country meetings with both colonels. So anyway, this kind of was a natural moving forward thing where I worked with a group of teachers from BUHS pre-COVID doing trauma work with Dave Melnick. And then at the end of last year was my first year working here, and I worked here as a social worker. We started having conversations again about how great it would be to bring his work back, especially like post-COVID or still in COVID, as we're dealing with obviously a lot of really hard issues with families, students, staff, society, community, like all of the above. And so we started having more conversations about how much it would be great if we could re-engage him in our school community. And I reached out to our principal, Cassie, and she said, let's check with Mark. Mark said, go for it. So we had Dave come back just to do a half day training with our school staff at the beginning of the school year, students coming in. And then we also, the group that worked with Dave 4 years ago, met with him for an hour after that, just to kind of debrief and see kind of ways that Dave could come back and help support more. And Dave does a lot of work with school districts, not necessarily individual schools, because keep the language similar throughout, the pre-K through 12 curriculum, and teachers and staff obviously makes for a much better school district to be trauma informed. And Mark came into that part of the conversation, and then Mark, Green, Paul, and I believe met with Dave to kind of go over how his work has transformed over the last few years. And part of my background was working with Dave in my former district, where I was part of a catalyst team, which was they are like 2 or 3 individuals from each building that met together with Dave once a month for a half day to talk about school improvement within those different buildings. So it was really targeted towards like common language throughout the district, but also like, you know, Guilford and Dummerston and Oak Grove may have very different needs. It's kind of how do we meet the needs of these individual schools while still doing the similar work. And so Dave, the two courses, the Trauma 1 and Trauma 2 course that he teaches are in addition to this Catalyst group, where those people in those programs usually come in as a small team from each school, which means that they're doing psychoeducation with him, but then they're also doing actual like project-based stuff that they can then bring back to their school teams and their school communities to better enhance learning by being more trauma informed. So that's where we are right now. And I believe next steps are that leadership team would meet. So Dave's very busy. And what he has available right now is that he could meet with the leadership team starting in the spring. He could continue working with the WHS group sometime around the same time. And then next school year, he could start working with full district Catalyst type moving forward in that direction.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll just add that I think it's safe to say every school in our school district has done levels of trauma-informed professional development, but in their own way. So this is an opportunity I see for us to bring that work together and have common discussions and collaboration around trauma-informed practices. So, for example, when I was principal of Green Street School, we consulted with a woman named Joelle Van Len, and we worked with her for multiple years developing trauma-informed practices. Joelle and Dave work well together. They do conferences together. But I'm sure principals can give other examples of other trauma-informed work they've done as well with their staff. So this is really an example for BUHS to take the lead in their consultation with Dave, and for us to look at the time frame of the spring to then bring Dave to the full admin team to do some foundational work and then develop a year-long plan for next school year, where we're essentially developing PLCs, professional learning communities, within each school and building up professional development and continuing with common language across the school system. So I think it's a really great opportunity. Our next steps will be to Bryn, Paul, myself, and Hannah will meet again with Dave as a follow-up because we had presented this concept on Friday to the full admin team. And we'll start carving out next steps and what that looks like. So I think it's an exciting opportunity to once again identify a very important topic and to develop some common practices along all of our schools. So that's the approach. And Hannah has a relationship with Dave prior to this school year. So we have a great end to continue with the work that was started, well, really a few years ago, BUHS, but more formally in August at the in-service day. Any questions specific to the approach we're taking, the work that they did with the high school in August? And then we'll shift to Beth sharing some best practices around setting up your classroom or school year.
I do have a question, if I may. I think it's, trauma-informed practice. It has a good feel to it, but can somebody put a very concise definition on those three words for me?
It's a good question.
I don't know if this helps or not, but it's a little bit just, we obviously, trauma is surrounding us right now, especially just with kind of what people have gone through recently. But, kids come to us from all different walks of life, as do staff. And so being trauma informed is just having a lens that you're seeing your staff and your students through so that you're able to help support them better in their roles, whether it's teaching or student. And I think part of that also is the biggest takeaway for me has been that traumatized students are just as capable as kids who do not have trauma backgrounds. And I think a lot of times adults lower expectations, which is saying to that student, like, we don't actually believe in you as much as we believe in the next person because you're damaged. So like, they're not damaged. They are coming from a different place and they may need you to approach the topic differently, but they can reach the same level as any other student in the building. So it's just like, it's a way for you to kind of mold your brain to say like, okay, so this kid can't do 2 + 2 verbally, but if you show them that 2 + 2 is, you know, in pebbles or whatever, you know, just finding ways to reach students and staff.
It's really well said, Hannah. And I think, you know, trauma-informed PD is for the entire community. It's not at a targeted group of people, but it's we all have trauma. We've all experienced ACEs. So it's an approach to be better informed in how we relate and discuss with each other. Paul, looks like you got a question.
This has a hand up.
Yeah, does the special education department have they taken part in this? I know they're under the SU, but I'm just curious.
They do take part, and actually one of the people who's part of the trauma 2 cohort at the high school is a special educator.
Okay, thank you.
There's no other questions. Well, Beth will present on some social emotional learning practices.
Okay. I sent some slides.
I passed them on to you.
Yeah.
But it's from you. I was looking for.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, just to help. But my name is Bethany Connolly. I'm a board certified behavior analyst, and this is the beginning of my 5th year in this district. And thank you so much for having me tonight to just present about some things I feel like are really important having to do with Tier 1 and just going through a trauma-informed lens too, like thinking a lot when people are talking about trauma are a lot of times like we jump to this Tier 2, Tier 3, what do these kids need? But pulling it back and seeing how we as a district can use the resources that we have within our schools to be able to implement Tier 1 practices across the board that everybody is going to have access to. And that's going to be a better starting point for us. So I prepared just a few slides, probably just be about 10 minutes to talk about what some of those are.
Oops. Hey, what does that? That. There. It's
Thank you.
Oops. There. Hand-eye coordination. Does that say start slideshow? No.
Yeah, so this is really just summarizing what I just spoke about, but that it's really important to prioritize Tier 1 so that we have school-wide and district-wide universal antecedent interventions that are really helping our students access their education in a way that makes sense as an individual and is just open to you as walking in the door, not being leveled as a part of a Tier 2 or Tier 3 intervention. All right, yeah. So Tier 1 really means a foundation for behavior and academics. It's healthy classroom practices. So it's something that's happening every single day in every single classroom and reflects the values of each individual school. So I really resonated with what you were saying, Hannah, is that we're not trying to put things across the board that just this is, you know, what the puzzle piece that you fit into, but each school can individualize what their values are and have that reflect in these daily classroom practices that are also giving your students access to individualism that's really helping them be a part of the school no matter what they're showing up with. It's a proactive approach to support each student's social, emotional, physical, and academic needs. So it's also, I think, sometimes looked at as really just thinking about behavior. And there also is an element of how this gives you the ability to access general education.
I went the wrong way.
And Paul, just so you know, online, what they're not seeing this, they're seeing what you have up on your screen currently.
I thought I should. That's great.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Anyway, thank you for pointing that out to me.
I don't think anyone envies your good job. Yeah.
Let's see. Stop sharing computers.
Your screensaver is beautiful.
Thank you. Wow.
Oh, that's a lot.
Really interesting. It's great.
I promise this was supposed to be about things being less complicated.
It's all coming away.
All right, everyone's doing great. So I think that's something that's really important to bring to light about this is that it's really necessary. You know, we can say one time at these 3 days that we have before the school year starts, okay, everybody needs to be implementing tier 1. Here are the things that you're going to do. But when teachers are going back to their classrooms, they're really making sure that they have their lesson set up for that day, or making sure that the cabinet they just ordered is built. There's these things that are happening that have to happen during that time. So how are we scheduling follow through and making sure that everybody has a model of how to do this and that there's actually time provided for that? So this is a time where somebody, maybe it's the BCBA, maybe it's the school counselor, maybe it's the social worker, is going to come in and show you a model of how your classroom can look the very first day and how we're going to schedule time to follow through with that. Scheduling peer observations. I know that that's something that is wildly helpful in my career, like being able to be told by a peer, here's some things that I do, and here's a way that I can help you and guide you. And also, oh, I learned that thing from you, and having that scheduled into time. And also scheduling time that we're practicing this with students. So it's actually a lesson to teach students, this is what this sounds like, this is what this looks like. So where every day in the classroom, students are really receiving that language of they know what exactly the expectation is of what it sounds like, what it looks like to access the things that they need to be able to learn. Okay, next slide.
Yeah.
So this is just some examples of things that every teacher will do. And I have really found in my practice that using this language in a supportive way around classrooms and saying, this is what you will have in your classroom gives really a basis of, okay, this is important and this matters and everybody else is doing it. Being present at the door when students enter the classroom and addressing each student individually. This is something that sometimes falls apart partway through the year where we're really starting strong. So that's going back to scheduling time to follow up and really push through that this is happening, because when kids are seeing you just individually as they walk in, it makes a huge impact on you have just connected with them. And I care about how you feel right now. You can also learn as a teacher, oh, this student that I know pretty well from the past 3 months is acting a little different right now. So I think I'm going to be able to check in partway through what they might need. Consider visual greeting students can choose from. Doing something that you have autonomy over, that you create as your own. But if it's every day that you're giving a compliment to a student when they come in, just saying, I'm really glad to see you. Thanks for being here. Commenting on something specific to them. If you just saw their soccer game last night, or you overheard them that they watched the same TV show you did, something that you're just connecting on a way that says, I really care about who you are as a person, but super quick and not laborious. And start the day with student choice. I think that this is really important and something that can be used across elementary, middle, and high school. And because it doesn't have to be, you think about student choice. Okay, I'm going to have kindergarten, you're coming in and you're playing at one of these centers. In high school during homeroom, providing different areas within the homeroom you can go if you just need a quiet space. You just have to put your headphones on for the first 5 minutes. If you have to journal a little bit, if you need to be drawing, like these different things that can happen. And then going into, and I just listed like silent reading, journaling, listening to music, coloring, needing a snack is really important. Some kids don't have food. So if you don't have breakfast there, if there's just a corner that has a couple granola bars, like you can just go there and there's no judgment. You don't have to ask for that. This is just a part of what you need. And you can go to the next slide, please. And then bringing the whole group together after that student choice has occurred. And this doesn't have to happen for a really long period of time. It can be 10 minutes, but then bringing your whole community together so that you're doing an activity for something that sets the tone of the day. So maybe a mindful minute or a yoga pose, doing some type of song in younger grades, or even, like maybe a pep rally song if you have a group of kids in a homeroom who are really into that right now, doing some kind of community shout out. So this is, again, where you're bringing in choice and autonomy as the teacher and the leader of that classroom, but everybody has that kind of community that comes in and sets the tone for the day. And then also every day, reviewing what the expectations are, what your procedures are, your agenda, when breaks are available, and when reinforcement for students will be available. And that also comes back to doing those check-ins throughout the year, because this is something that we easily, we've told these kids for 3 months now, it's about to be Christmas break, what the agenda is. Everybody knows it's the same every day, but it can be so comforting to even that one student to hear, this is what's happening today. This is when I'm going to be able to take my break. This is when I know I'm going to eat. This is what, going back to, we're not sure what everybody's coming into school with, what baggage they're coming in with. And so this can be really, really important, helpful. And this is something that we're really working on this year, is having every classroom have a calm corner. And I think that this is a really incredible resource, and also something that you can have a little bit of autonomy over, but is going to be carried throughout the child's academic career, so that they know once they've learned how to use something. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with kids at the very end of the school year. Who's going to be my new teacher? What is going to be available for me? How am I going to access things, or have to learn how to talk to this new person or be with these new kids? If we can, in all of our schools, have something as simple as a calm corner, and this is going to be in every one of your classrooms for the entirety of your academic career, that can be really comforting to kids. Like, I already know how to use this and what to do. And it's really a designed safe space in your classroom, which offers tools that children can use to self-regulate. And it's really teaching a lot of self-regulation skills. It's taking care of your emotions. And I think that something we're learning now with older children too, but especially in the younger grades, is that there hasn't really been a lot of work around how kids learn how to self-regulate, because we've all just, like my son has just had all his needs met. He's 3 with me and my husband in our house because it was COVID, right? Like he's just like, oh yeah, great. Okay. I can get all of these things because I'm just here with my parents. And it really makes a huge difference. You have to learn this. So you can go to the next slide. There's a couple pictures of what this can look like. And also really having the opportunity to teach this. There's some really incredible resources from the responsive classroom that I've been using to teach teachers how to implement this and how to teach it to their students. So you have an actual lesson during a day that's a cooperative lesson, and you're saying, okay, I am going to teach you how to use this calm down space. And during the lesson today, when I point to you or say your name, it's your turn to go do that. Explore what helps you feel. So I'd be doing my lesson, Whitney, it's your turn. And then have them go use the timer the correct way, be able to provide these peer models, have everybody learning how to do it. And that's, I think, a piece that sometimes we're missing in tier one, is that there isn't this emphasis on make sure that everybody gets to practice. So you know that your entire student body really knows how to do that. So implementing a way that we're following through with everyone practicing that, which I think is what this next slide does. Yeah, so that's really what I talked about. It's really a place that students can feel safe, that they can reset and then become more ready to learn. And we talked about at Putney Central School, eventually making like Ziploc bags in a box that would be for each individualized student. So once they've gone through their comm space many times, then we realize, okay, this is the thing that actually really gets you ready to come back and learn. And so then when you decide to go, you're just going to pull your name. We're going to build these for you. And that takes time. That's going to not happen, in the 3 days before school starts. And we have to really get to know our learners, but they can carry that with them to the next grade. So if I have a 5th grader who's really able to follow a timer and just needs to journal for 3 minutes and then can get right back to it, then I'm going to be able to pass it on to the next teacher next year, and they're going to still have that available to them. And so putting this all into practice, mandate time during in-service days, provide trainings, use staff meeting time. I've been really fortunate to have a staff meeting time to be able to go through the calm down corners, post some videos, be able to help people with that, and then schedule check-ins throughout the year and treat tier one like benchmarks. This is just as important. And I think that our teachers get really focused and really are feeling a lot of pressure around benchmarks and making sure that data-days are up to date. And if we can put that same emphasis on these tier one supports, then we're really going to see a decrease in students who need to be a part of tier 2 and tier 3. That's what I got.
Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you.
So just to kind of put a frame around the two, around Hannah's work that she presented and Bethany's, Hannah, trauma-informed practices, big picture, school system wide picture. Bethany, some very practical trauma-informed methods. By engaging in school district work and creating PLCs where teachers from each school are coming together regularly on a monthly basis, that provides an opportunity to share the practices that are happening at each school and to build that common language and approach that works in your school communities. So a lot of what Bethany presented is very much in many of our schools. In some schools, maybe pockets of our schools, not the entire school. And like everything, we're working on identifying best practice to improve every day what we're doing for each student and their experience. So open to questions, but that's the approach. That's kind of the way we're looking at it as we move forward as a complete school system.
Mark, thank you. And thank you.
I just want to say thank you. That was fantastic. Your enthusiasm, shine with it. And this is what I think of when I think of trauma-informed practices across the board, autonomy, and having these resources available to every student, regardless of their situation. I think it's great.
Anyone else on the board? Questions, comments?
I just jotted down developments of methods for student success. It was impressive.
Anyone from the public? Yeah. I guess I would like to say that the two things that I noted, and I thought it was important. You noted that staff can come in having had trauma, and I think I don't know that that's something that we always think about. And these are the people who are teaching and taking care of our kids, and we want to make sure they're taken care of so they can do the best job they can. So,
Yeah, and I'd say Dave Melnick really focuses on how adults can feel supported by other adults in the building and what that looks like. Just again, really
so I really appreciate that. And I really liked your comment about connecting on a way that says I care. I think that's what you said. That really kind of stuck with me, so I appreciate that.
I'd love to hear you come back after this has been implemented and hear how it's going.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love that. Okay. So if there are no other questions or comments, we will move along to the public comment on non-agenda items. 10 minutes has been allotted to that. Anyone making a comment can expect a response that falls into one of the following categories. Receive an acknowledgement of the comment with no further action planned. Receive an immediate response by the board chair or administration. Administration would be directed to contact and respond to the person. Clarification sought from the administration for a specified meeting. The topic would be added to a specified future board agenda. The matter would be referred to an executive session. A public hearing would be held on the matter. Do we have anyone?
Thanks, Jackie Reynolds, Brattleboro. I did ask this question at the last meeting, and as far as I know, none of those steps have happened yet. I know there's a lot going on, but I'm going to ask it again. My question is about the approval of the minutes for August 9th that happened on August 23rd. In viewing the video multiple times, I noted that Tim was allowed to make a motion to amend the minutes. Michelle, who was attempting simultaneously to amend the minutes, was ignored and never allowed to make her motion, and was told that it could be added to the next agenda, which it was not. And then at the next meeting, the meeting after that is when I asked, and I haven't heard about it. So I'm just wondering if at some point we can find out what it was that Michelle wanted to add to the minutes of August 9th, because it's quite a few meetings out at this point. And then one other comment, I am very thankful to see that the topic of board code of ethics is on tonight's agenda. And I am very hopeful that it is Michelle Green that we will hear from, because she is the person who brought forward the motion. Hopefully we can hear her comments on that. Thanks.
So I will respond to the first one. I will say that I was not at the last two meetings, but I believe 2 meetings ago, I believe David, the vice chair, who's not here this evening, indicated that he was going to reach out to our attorney. And this has already been provided to members of the members of the board, but the attorney, the important part about this is that there's nothing about recording every comment made by members. We were encouraged. The board chair is encouraged to limit talking without being recognized by the chair, as that's consistent with Robert's rules. So, and the advice also included that when comments are made out of order, they are not to be recorded. So that's appears to be what our attorney has advised.
May I possibly add 2 quick comments to that?
Sure.
It didn't appear in the video that Michelle was out of order, because she was raising her hand and asking at the exact same time as Tim, and she simply wasn't recognized. And David did mention contacting the attorney, but he actually said in that meeting that he was going to contact the attorney about the minutes of August 23rd and August 27th, and still nothing about the minutes of August 9th. So I do hope at a future meeting, we can still find out what Michelle wanted to add to the minutes of August 9th.
Point of order. I would just advise everybody to be very careful about talking about attorney-client privilege. We cannot talk about what the attorney advised us. That's attorney-client privilege.
Thank you,
So
Tim.
let's be really careful about that.
I'm just going to respond that I do not recall, as I wasn't at the meeting. I am not sure about the September 27th meeting. That's the one you referenced?
David said the minutes of August 23rd and September 27th.
So the first part of your comment, can you send me an email so I can follow up with that? And also I will follow up, and can you include the September 27th date in there? So I'm not sure about that, so I'll follow up.
Yeah, I can send you what else I have about it.
That would be great. Thank you.
Is it appropriate for me to respond as well?
Yeah.
Can I make a comment?
And it's not, it won't be taken away from.
Okay. So we're talking about the August 23rd recording, where Tim amended the motion, and then Michelle also said, she said, quote, "I also have a motion." And I listened to that recording as well, and I very clearly heard her say, right after Tim said, "I have an amendment," she also said that. The problem, I think, is when we sit in some of these rooms, and especially the multi-purpose room, the acoustics are terrible. And when you listen to the recording, the microphone picks it up immediately. And so I think that's what happened. And then when I also listened to it, and I obviously I have no idea what the motion was that Michelle wanted to make, but the two motions, the first one to approve the minutes, followed by Tim saying, "I want to amend the minutes," they got convoluted into one vote. And that's what got confusing. And so that's what I heard. Anyway, I think the acoustics in the rooms are terrible, and we just can't hear. We hear when we listen to BCTV later on.
I appreciate that, Deborah, because it was very confusing. Thank you for also listening to it again.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Jody.
First of all, before I start what I came here to say, I want to thank the board for having students on the board. It's been a long time coming. And I don't know who was responsible. I have a feeling it was Lana that might have been responsible for it, but thank you. So what I came here to say was, I put my glasses on, is I came here tonight because I've been very upset and saddened by the tenure of what has been happening at these board meetings. I've known and worked with many of these board members. They are good people who care very much about our children and their education, which, by the way, they don't get much chance to talk about. They are continually putting out fires. Since COVID and the other big outside issues, meetings have taken on an upset and bitter tone, like a lot of the rest of the country. Please, people, we are Southern Vermont. We used to be civil to one another, and we used to work so well together. What in the world has happened? I've watched and listened to the verbal abuse of the board members who are trying their best to work through these problems. A lot of these people should know better, as they have also been board members in the past. There are issues they can't talk openly about, and they have tried to tell everybody that. Most of these issues are legal or about kids or personnel. The board has been acting on attorney's advice. It's also obvious by watching the meetings that there is an internal issue that needs to be addressed in order to function better as a board. And I'm glad to hear that you're going to have the Robert's Rules of Order thing coming up. And backbiting is never constructive. A lot of these problems are not what members signed up for. If this keeps up, we will not have anyone willing to run for the board, or we will have a board that does not know how to operate. The public has a right to speak and ask questions and give opinions. People should, however, be polite and kind in speaking. Can't we go back to work together? We, after all, are neighbors, and we all care about our kids. Thank you.
Jamie, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sheila Linton had a letter for this evening, but she couldn't attend, and so I had volunteered to read it. So I'm reading this on behalf of Sheila Linton of Brattleboro, and I have little ones around me, so we'll see how it goes. Dear community, over the last few weeks, I have been engaged in conversations about the school board and their practices. As many of you know, there has been a concern in the community about power, leadership, and decision-making with regards to how school board meetings are run and the use of certain tools such as executive sessions. When I first heard about this issue, I was concerned that the executive session may be being abused or used inappropriately. Zoe, can you be silent, my love? I had reason to believe that this could be true because of what I knew at the time and my own past experiences as a school board member. I decided to sign a petition to what I thought would be supporting the use of executive session in an appropriate and legal way and holding those accountable in that leadership to do so. After more thought and talking to more people directly on the school board and in the community, I have since asked for my name to be removed from the petition. The petition has also been taken down. My reasoning is that I believe that executive sessions are needed and are being used appropriately during this time when so many personnel and harmful situations have taken place. The district needs those sessions to allow for privacy and the protection of not only staff, but even more important, the youth and families impacted by the adults in the district. There's no time limit for this. I trust that the school board members will be thorough and use whatever time is needed to investigate, inform, and make good decisions. I believe that if these meetings were not in compliance with the law or were being misused, other board members would bring this to light. I do not believe this is the case, and I support school board members and the use of executive sessions. Process matters. Let's get this right. Sheila Litton, Brattleboro. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila.
Dr. Bristol from Guilford. So I'm here tonight as an individual parent. So I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but I've spoken with many parents and students from this campus over the last 2 weeks who share and very much support this same sentiment. The drug overdoses that occurred within the walls of our school a couple weeks ago are horrifying. The events come as a harsh reality check that no place is safe from this epidemic, and it will take strong and serious action to prevent it from further infiltrating our schools. It is the responsibility of this board and this administration to take immediate action and to communicate those actions to students, parents, and staff. I was disturbed by the lack of immediate action following these events. I expected to see an emergency meeting called to organize and activate a response plan, to pull together resources, including law enforcement, administration, staff, students, and parents, to develop an action plan. If this was done, it was not communicated, and it should have been. Without this communication and this action, it feels very much like nothing is being done, and that's unacceptable. The very next day following these events, and for many days thereafter, there should have been drug dogs screening every person entering the building. And this should continue at random throughout the school year. This may sound extreme, and it is, and it should be. This is an extreme problem. These kids could have died. What are we doing to prevent it from happening again? While I am in complete support of preventative programs, I'm quite certain the parents of a child who accidentally come into contact with fentanyl inside the walls of this building would not be satisfied to hear that we have posters hanging and counseling services available. You have to take action, serious action. The students are calling for action. Parents are calling for action. You have the resources and ability to take the action. You just have to do it. The response to these events should take precedence over all educational programming and directives right now. Our students cannot learn if they're at risk of accidental or deliberate exposure to these serious drugs, and we cannot expect parents to drop their kids off here in the morning and hope for the best. It's unacceptable. I implore you to take action tonight, right now. Establish a drug crisis task force. Give the community the assurance that the problem is taken seriously and is actively and swiftly being addressed. Okay.
think that went on, or the response of the administration?
Yeah, I mean, that was a very scary week for those instances to occur on this campus. What I will say is the response from the health office, the safety officers, and the administration was very much on point in terms of providing the immediate need that those children had at that time. Cassie was engaged in conversations with me on, I believe it was that Thursday. And, you know, we made the decision to meet with all of the students and have kind of a town meeting.
Good Friday.
Was it a Friday? Okay. To address it and address it directly. I'm proud of that. We didn't wait until the weekend and send an email. It was, you know, a disturbing event, and it received that type of attention and directness. Ricky Davidson, school nurses and administrators helped facilitate open, honest communication with the students. We initiated an investigation with the Brattleboro Police Department, which is active and ongoing. We have invested in vape sensors to be installed in all bathrooms on BU6 campus. We've invested in emergency sensors being installed on every single exterior door on campus. So those installations will be happening shortly, as soon as materials arrive. Ricky, I'm sure will want to speak a little bit, but has been very proactive in his approach with the health office and communicating with staff and how to facilitate conversations with students. And the message essentially is, if you know something, tell us. Like, there are no consequences regardless. But information and communication is at its core the most important thing. If you know somebody who's messing around with something they shouldn't be, tell us. It can be confidential. There are no consequences. We need to support our community. So those are the messages that we're sending and working with our students on. There's a plan for developing formal advisories coming together to have really difficult conversations around multiple topics. That's a plan that has been put in place by the administration in collaboration with the faculty council. Student support team, sorry. So there are lots of action steps in the works. Anna, Ricky, feel free to add, but those are initial responses.
I mean, like, I also had a child in the school. Like, I also graduated from here. I mean, it's like, it's my community, and it happened in the afternoon, and within 1 hour, we had all of our students, and we had 9th and 11th grade in the gym, and 10th and 12th graders in the auditorium, and then the house admin in their separate spot. Ricky went back and forth between both. But this was, and I had sent out an email to all staff prior to this. Nobody is taking this lightly. And I mean, I shared it with the student population. Like, this isn't about like how you're doing on a test. This is literally about life and death. Right. And so this is, and it's scary. And I cried multiple times that day. That was really scary. And I shared with students, like, this is not something that we are taking lightly, and we are afraid right now. What we're afraid for is like all of you, because we don't want you to wake up tomorrow morning and find out like your friend has died. Right. So like, if you have any information, come tell us. It is confidential. You will not get in trouble. The only thing that we care about is that you guys are safe. That's our #1 priority. So I'm pretty sure Cassie sent out an email to all families. I sent out an email to all students. We had 2 different separate house meetings to discuss this. Our student support team is made up of all of our school counselors, social workers, Ricky, our student support team, or our
student engagement.
Thank you, student engagement team. Nurses. Myself, the nurses, admin. So, and that team all feels comfortable and capable in having these conversations. So we don't want to put these conversations in the hands of them. We don't want to set teachers up to feel like they are put in a situation that they're not comfortable in. So we have combined advisories. Today we spent time in our in-service day working as a team to create these extended advisories, and they will, tomorrow we're meeting again to come up with what the talking points are. So each advisory group is doing the same thing. And a week, I don't even know what day the week we're on right now. Is it Tuesday? A week from today, we are doing the extended advisories with all of our students. I mean, I'm very big on community, but the community problem, and this is a community solution, and this is community conversation. Like, they absolutely need to continue having. I know that Tracy, Cassie, and myself are very open to having conversations with parents, students, whoever wants to have conversations. We are all ears.
What about the detection methods? Anything? I mean, it seems like it's talking about it a lot, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that afternoon, I was shocked at the number of students that came forward sharing information about where the drugs had been, where they had seen them, who has them. Like, I was very proud of the students, because this was not a situation where these were kids that typically don't trust the system, and they were trusting us to try to help solve this problem.
It feels like a big responsibility to put on the student who turn in other students, like
100%. Yeah. But I mean, but that's also part of our community. That's
sure, that should be a piece of it,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, beyond that, I mean, there's conversations constantly taking place. I'd be happy to hear Ricky share more.
Hey, everybody. So I just want to say, I agree with you that this was a scary situation and it was frightening. I want to say what Mark and Hannah said. I want to repeat the fact that the students involved were very well taken care of from the moment, and got the best care possible as soon as humanly possible, and are both doing significantly better. So that's good. At the same time, too, within moments of it happening, students, as Hannah was saying, were coming forward to talk to us, to talk about their thoughts, their feelings, their ideas. I had a conversation just last week on Friday with a group of 10th grade boys around detection methods. And they were like, should we go to clear backpacks and drug sniffing dogs? And as much as that could be a way to go, I went to a high school that had drug sniffing dogs and metal detectors, and it didn't feel like going to school. It felt like going to jail every morning. So I think we have to balance those kinds of things out. Also, a lot of the substances some of the substances we're dealing with, a dog's not necessarily going to find it. The dog's not trained to smell them necessarily. So that's the other piece to it, is that we think if we did something like that, we might think we're doing the right thing, but it might not be. But conversations are happening. And I think the student body is much more aware of what's happening. So we're not putting all the pressure on them. We want them to share their thoughts and their feelings with us, and help us decide what's the best thing to help themselves and their peers. Because we as adults can make decisions that are actually end up being hurtful in the long run, and we don't want to do that. So we're finding that balance that's there. I've been having conversations about this with students every single day, in all kinds of ways since this happened. And I think that as much as this was a really horrific thing that happened, there was a lot of learning that took place in a really positive way. And I think that people are thinking twice about things before they make choices. And I hope that continues. And those conversations are going to get early. We're also engaging with community partners to help support our students as well. So that kind of stuff is happening also. So there's a lot of things happening that are not necessarily upfront and foremost necessarily for everybody, but they're supporting the students that need it the most to help them to be as productive and be as the best learners they can be in our building. So it's finding that balance.
maybe some sort of recurring communication to parents on a regular basis, specifically on this issue, would be helpful.
It's good feedback.
Yeah, and I would also just add that I had a local therapist reach out to me pretty immediately after this occurred to say that like she had come into the high school in years past to do some different kind of programming with students. And could we do something similar to that again? And I said, absolutely. And she reached out to some colleagues and came back and said she has like 5 different people that are willing to come take part in these different programs we can do to help support students and what that might look like. So those conversations are also.
And has law enforcement been part of like the plan for future preventative actions, or have they not been engaged? I know they were engaged that day, but for future.
Not specifically, but I know that they would be absolutely willing to be a part of that in developing those plans.
Yeah. So we need to take a 5-minute break, but I want to make sure that Beth's questions and the conversation is fully done. And I know Cassie is on the line and wants to speak. So Cassie, is it, should we wait until our 5 minutes are up, or can you?
I can add a little bit, just kind of to piggyback what Hannah and Ricky said, and sort of repeat. So there is an ongoing investigation regarding this. And so oftentimes when that occurs, you know, we work in collaboration with law enforcement to provide them with whatever they need in order to conduct their conversation. I think it's, you know, I'm a mom myself. I have my own senior at a different high school. This, you know, and piggybacking what Hannah said, I cried in front of students for the first time that day. And it felt important that I do so because it is so scary. So I want to second what you're saying as a parent, that like this is so frightening to me. But it's also that fine line of recognizing that addiction is a disease. And so as much as, you know, historically we want to just, you know, do the suspension or do the detention and hope that fixes the problem, I think it's going to take more work. I'm happy to send out a regular communication to families to keep them posted on the work that we're doing, because I do think you're a valuable stakeholder in this as well. And any input that, you know, you have, I love hearing that from parents, because it helps me to do my job better. So I want to thank you for that. And, you know, if there's any other questions I can answer, I'm happy to do so.
Okay, so we're going to take.
I just one last thing, sorry, real quick. Just I want to say too that I'm the SAP for the high school and the Career Center, but I'm also a support to parents and a resource to parents. And since this has happened, a number of parents have reached out to me individually with like, what should I look for with my individual kid? How should I have these kind of conversations? And I've been doing that on an individual basis. I mean, I've done that before this happened, but it's happened much more. So I just want to say that I'm there as a resource for parents, as well as how do you have these conversations with your teenager? How do you have these difficult conversations? What do you look for? So I'm there as a resource for parents. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. So Bethany.
Bethany.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak before you guys take a break, because it is related to this conversation. So Bethany Ranquist, parents of a BUHS student. I actually just wanted to chime in and say that my child was, I'll just preface it by saying that my child was homeschooled until this year and jumped into BUHS, and I was pretty terrified, honestly. And I just actually want to give a huge shout out to the staff and especially the administration, because so far this year I have felt significantly more comforted and much more impressed than I expected to be. And as far as this situation goes, I just want to say I fully agree that I think more communication of what is being done would probably help, because transparency seems like a theme that we're really all focused on. I think, you know, Cassie just said maybe a regular communication to parents on what steps are happening. That would be fantastic. But I do want to say that my child came home the day that this happened and said, Mom, they sat us in a thing, and like, it wasn't just all the staff like standing in front of us lecturing us. Like our principal just like sat down on the floor and crossed her legs and just talked to us. And she was so clear, like, if you know something, come and tell us. You won't get in trouble. Like, if you have something in your bag, like, get rid of it, bring it to us, give it to the police, flush it down the toilet. We don't care. We just want you safe. This is about safety. And like, she felt very supported. She felt very safe as far as how it was handled. And I just, I guess, want to make sure that what was done within that day and within that week and what is continuing to be done. Like, I really do appreciate the amount of work that is going into keeping our kids safe in the school. I think the hallways are significantly better and different this year, and a lot less scary. And so I just wanted to make sure that our administrators are feeling, and all staff at the school, including health staff, that I'm sure that was really stressful for. Also, I just want to make sure everybody is feeling that there definitely were a lot of correct steps taken that day. My kid did not come home from school not having had it addressed. And so as a result, was able to go the next day feeling like she was supported and that it had been addressed and that she knew that there was something happening about it. So kudos on a very quick response. I agree, more communication would be great, but I also do want to say you guys handled it in the best possible way considering the situation, in my opinion. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bethany.
So I was asked to write something and I did, and I'm going to read it, and then I think we're going to take a break.
Yes.
The WSESD board would like to express its profound gratitude to the entire UHS community for their thoughtful, potentially life-saving response to the recent medical emergencies at the high school. To those who administered aid and contacted EMS, thank you. To those who taught our students what to do in such an emergency, thank you. To those students who sought aid for those in danger, thank you. To those who created a safe space for those students to do the right thing, thank you. To those who continue to try to create a safer world for all of our children, thank you. We know that every ill that affects our society has a profound effect on our schools and families. We have every confidence that our school communities will continue to face those ills with courage, intelligence, and hope.
Thank you. So I want to thank Hannah and Anna and Cassie and Bethany and Mark and Ricky and Beth for all speaking to this stuff. I would say that I don't know what else could be done. I don't know what other possibilities or ideas, but if you have some suggestions, please feel free to reach out to anyone on the board. And
the conversation. I mean, yeah, we just need to have the conversation.
If you feel that there are some other steps that might be helpful, or please let us know. We would, we welcome, having that input. Thank you very much. Now I think we're going to take a break at 7:26, so we will come back at 7:31. So we are coming back to order at 7:36. Thank you, everyone. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in the public comment? Anyone else? I'm going to ask another time, public comment. And the last call. No one? Okay, thank you very much, public who has chimed in. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to unfinished business. Can I hand it over to you, Deborah, for the policy amendment committee?
I would just like to begin by acknowledging the inconvenience of meeting at 3:00 in the afternoon. The committee has explored so many different options. The rationale for 3 p.m. is that it enables board members and administrators to be in the same place at the same time, collaborating on these policies. The meeting is 90 minutes long. It is typically posted within 48 hours on the WSESD website. So 90 minutes, Please tune in at your convenience and offer comments via email, please. So the policy in question is D7. We are up for a third reading with revision. So we're going into another 10-day warning period. And we are really, as a committee, taking everyone's comments to heart. Again, D7, and if you go to the second page, which is titled Administrative Procedures. So the changes that have occurred since the last time we presented, obviously we're still looking at commencing on January 1st, 2023. But the change is transportation of students within not a 20-mile radius, but rather a 35-mile radius to accommodate Mount Snow and then possibly any detours that might go beyond 30 miles. That the school, the school may be provided by a volunteer, provided that the transportation of students may be provided by a volunteer, provided that A, the volunteer has undergone a full Vermont Crime Investigation Center background check, or B, a second adult traveling in the vehicle has undergone that background check. And that second individual would be a school employee who, by virtue of employment, has been fully vetted. The last sentence of that paragraph, in the event of extenuating circumstances, any adjustments to the travel radius must have approval of the superintendent, meaning anybody going beyond the 35 miles, you do have to check in with the superintendent for permission. Another paragraph has been added. The vehicle owned by the volunteer driver must be insured under an insurance policy to indemnify against liability for damages for personal injuries of a minimum of $300,000. That's nothing new. That's the insurance that's required for all vehicles. And then there is another note. This does not change existing school procedures regarding a parent or guardian transporting their own child to a school-sponsored event. However, if that parent or guardian transport any other children to a school-sponsored event, they are now defined as a volunteer. So we are going into a third reading on D7.
So are you offering it for approval or
no, this is just going into a third reading because these are revisions. And so now it's got to settle with everybody for the next 10 days for comment. So I defer to the chair to call on people.
Okay, Jody.
I do still have some comments about this. I had talked to Deborah, who came to our apple pie festival, so she knew what my comments were. But and I know times have changed since I was transporting kids or even grandkids at this point. And I don't want anything to interfere with the smaller schools being able to go to their games and stuff. And Julianne can probably tell me. But one of the things that I worry about is that the equity as far as transportation is concerned between the high school sports and the smaller schools of transportation, I'm sure is not there. It's not a per capita equity. If I were a parent today at Durmiston School, I could only transport my child to a game. And I know without having a background check. I am afraid that this is going to limit us having transportation for these kids to games, to Walpole or Westmoreland or whatever. And then the other part of this is rather than going through a whole crime investigation, or is there any, I mean, could people get a small bus driver's license of some sort that could take the smaller kids? There's just all kinds of questions. I just don't want to put any hamper on, especially the smaller schools. Yes.
Your example that you just shared those are things that we need to look into as options to support implementation.
Well, as Deborah knows, because I told her back in the old days when my son was in school, the AD said, "I'm sorry, we don't have any, but we don't have a bus and we don't have any driver for the ski team." And I said, "I'll take my bus driver's license," and I drove the ski team. And it's not very hard to do. I had to do it on a big bus and go through the old bridge that crossed the West River over here. But I think there's other options, and I just hate to hogtie Julianne and having these kids who want to play. We have so many Dummerston kids who play soccer, for example, particularly, and basketball too, probably.
I would say it doesn't limit problem solving and creative ideas, but it does set a new standard based on.
I understand having the insurance.
But so can I respond? So I'm going to go to something that Paul Smith said at the last meeting, and that is that our lawyer adamantly does not want any volunteer driving any child to an off-site event, to a school-sponsored off-site event. So this is the compromise to be fingerprinted and at the district's expense. And you start the process going.
Is it just the fingerprint?
That's it.
When you read this and you say the Crime Investigation Center, and I'm thinking, oh, good Lord, what are they going to find about me?
I'm a little concerned for myself as well, because I was recently fingerprinted in order to meet with students. Until such time as I'm cleared, I have to meet with students only in the presence of a fully vetted school employee. So I'm fingerprinted, and as are 3 other board members right now.
And our teachers have to get fingerprinted.
Every employee of every school has to be fingerprinted. So. And then the other comment that I would like to make with all due respect and good humor is, are you volunteering?
No. It's my age, I have done enough of that.
So, yes.
Thank you very much, Deborah.
Yes.
Thank you, Jody. I will say before we move on to Michelle has a comment. I will say, Jody, as I expressed to Beth, if you have certain ideas on things, please feel free to put those in writing. Sometimes it's easier to remember or to, follow up on things. So, but please feel free to forward along some things if you have ideas.
Yeah, I'd just like to know how the outlying principals feel about it.
Okay, well, we're going to go to Michelle because she's on the board. And then after that, we'll open it up to administration.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah. So I love the changes that were made. Thank you. The 35 miles. And I thought it was really wise to include that the superintendent can always sign off on something under certain circumstances. I'm still very concerned about the commencing date of January 1st, 2023. I just don't feel like that's very much time to transition. I think that people need time to transition. And when we go through major changes, and this is pretty major, it feels like that's coming up fast at a time where we're finishing up holiday. We're going right into holidays from like soccer season. When you're a family, that's a lot of running around. The other piece I'm still very concerned about, the limited hours and that being an equity issue. I'm thinking, I have the luxury of having at home hours, being able to go and have this done during the workday, standard workday, Monday through Friday. I don't know what the options are. I don't know what the solutions are, but it seems like it would be nice to have an implementation plan. And maybe, have like fingerprint drives, and what a goal to have like half our population's needs met before we started this policy or something. And that would be something I think that our administrators might have more information on. But I'm just concerned that it's going to hit us over the head fast if it comes up on January 1st. And a lot of people are going to struggle to be able to go get those fingerprints between 8 and 4 Monday through Friday or something, whatever their hours are. And I also would like to hear with the admins what you're thinking about how to help transition your community so that this has the least impact on student programming.
Thank you, Michelle. Keith?
Yeah, I was just going to say really quick in response, Jody, your last comment was around minibuses, and we have 2 of them at the AMS. There's 1 or 2 at the Career Center. We just don't have drivers, so. And that actually doesn't take a CDL and all the stuff that you need for the large buses. It just requires a class 2, I believe. So if anybody's listening, they're looking for a part-time job. I mean, yeah, just really quick. I know it's a bigger issue for Putney and Dummerston probably, but like we had a girls' soccer game the other day that would have been canceled. We had to find drivers to go to Leland and Gray, and there were multiple, the coach and a couple other people could take three kids in their car, 4 kids or whatever, and they threw it together at the last minute. But it's definitely an issue for all of us.
Thank you, Keith. We're going to go to Cassie first, and then Julianne, and then we are going to go to Ruby. That's been waiting, and then we have time. So Cassie?
No, Michelle actually said a lot of what I was thinking. I worry just in seeing how some of my staff have struggled to get fingerprints done. I was so happy to hear when, the news came out, they were moving to Brattleboro to do those, because traveling up to Newfane for limited hours could be challenging, especially because it would be during the school day. And I guess this is something we'd have to continue the conversation about, but I was wondering if maybe it would be possible to collaborate with the sheriff's department to get some sort of a drive where we send out notification on this day. If you would like to have a background check done to be a volunteer in our schools, come to BUHS between 10 and 12 or something like that. And again, it might be challenging with the equipment they need, but I think it would be worth looking into to make it as equitable as possible for everyone.
Thank you, Cassie. Julian?
Sure. I think this issue, it's just really surfaced the bus shortage and the bus driver shortage. Prior to the merger, it was the tradition for Dummerston School to not have busing. And then since the merger, when I spoke to Mark and Frank about that issue, because I know I can speak for Dummerston School families and coaches and the AD that it feels like if BAMS gets busing to sports events, then that should be something that Putney and Dummerston get as well, especially under the merger that we share that responsibility. And as, a principal of a middle school and a former middle school teacher, bus time is important for the team. There's a lot of reasons you don't want to rely on parent transportation for going to games. It's just a really important community building time. And getting students into parent cars at the end of the day is stressful. It can be particularly stressful for students who are just like, at last minute, maybe plans change and you're not sure where you have a seat, and a bus eliminates that. Everybody's on the bus. It's a very important time for a team. And it's something that our students should have the opportunity to do. So this is revealing just the kind of consequence that shortage is having. It's having a real effect. And I would agree. I mean, the tradition of parent drivers for a variety of reasons is important. I think that builds community too, because some families really see that as a way that they volunteer and how they get to know the teacher and how they get to know students, volunteering to go to the museum and having 3 kids in your back seat and listening to them talk. And that's really special opportunity. So if we can, yes, somehow problem solve, allowing, ways for people to know, really essentially marketing to our families, like, this is what you need to do. We want you to be able to do these things. This is what you need to do. And here's how you can do it, because it is difficult to schedule.
Yeah.
Thank you. And now, it looks like Ruby.
Ruby. Go ahead, Ruby.
Hi, Ruby McAdoo. I'm a PCS parent. I'll try to be really brief. I know I agree with a lot of what's been said. I'm very thankful for the change in radius because both Mount Snow, but also Grafton is beyond 20 miles, and that was a key part of our winter sports program. And I really feel I feel grateful that you are focusing on this, and I understand the predicament and the legal conundrum you have. But it feels really imperative that two things are clarified, or at least one thing is clarified and one thing is done. And the thing that would be good to clarify is whether the expense and that burden around the fingerprinting and the background check would fall on to the parent or volunteer, or whether it would be part of the school district's expense. I do know that there's some expense, and I just would like that to be, whether it's in the policy or just generally in practice, clarified. And then the other point is that I realize and I understand, I hear when Deborah clarified in the minutes that you all approved that there, if there was some recommendation that the committee share this with the public or share it, get it out to the community through the communications council or the leadership councils. I get that maybe that's overstepping into administrative responsibilities, but this has a huge impact on the parent volunteers. And so this, more than any policy that I've observed you all considering, this one, if this is put into place on January 1st, there will be a clamor of what? What do you mean? And so it feels really important that you get the word out about this. And specifically, if you do clarify that any background check, the expense of it would be on the district, if that is true, then make that clear. Because if that's the case, I'll just get a whole bunch of PCS parents lined up and out the door, because I have at least one that is a middle school parent who every week, at least 3 times back and forth is taking kids to a practice, not a game. And that's, that would not be allowed. So those are my comments. And I also just want to reiterate the appreciation for the policy and amendment committee. You're doing great work.
So can I just respond?
Thank you, Ruby. So if you can respond quickly, then we're going to quickly go back to Jody, and then we're going to move on.
So Ruby, thank you very much. Regarding the fee, in the same administrative procedure page, the sentence above says, and this is not new, the district will pay the fees associated with criminal records checks. So by all means, corral everyone and write to whom? Mark Spino, superintendent?
School principal who will be in contact with me.
Okay. One of the information to Mark, but the district covers this cost by absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. I need to raise my hand. So Jody, is your comment very quick?
Very quick.
So
this gentleman over here was the principal, said you had the buses. Why can't the coaches get their bus driver's license?
It's a little hard to force. So it's something we can certainly encourage.
So that's one of the ideas that maybe you can, after you leave, I know often I will leave a situation and I'll say, I had another idea. So maybe those sort of ideas you can put in an email and you can send it to one of the administrators or to Mark or to the board.
I can send it to everybody.
Okay, so Tim and then Hannah and then.
I make a motion to extend this meeting by 45 minutes. And I would also like to say that I appreciate that some of the administrators have started their day at 7 o'clock in the morning. So if anybody feels that their part of the meeting is over, feel comfortable in leaving. But I get back to my motion to extend the meeting for 45 minutes.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Lana. All those in favor of extending the meeting by 45 minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are extended. So, Ann, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
I just wanted to say that as a parent of a Dummerston Middle Schooler playing basketball, my child will not be able to get to games without parent volunteers. So, and I think that that is probably true for most everybody in my experience.
This is why we do the readings.
It is, and we are happy that everyone provides input because that's what helps to make it better. Thank you very much. So we are going to move on to the sexual abuse investigation update. Unfortunately, I have nothing further to report. The investigation is ongoing, and I will encourage anyone who may have related information, please consider contacting the investigator. I believe that she is still getting communications. So now we will move along to Mark's to the administration.
Okay, try to get right to it. So a couple of weeks ago, community member, local advocate Kelsey Rice reached out to me, asked if I would join her at the select board meeting this evening as a show of support to her work around raising the awareness of the effects of domestic violence. Since I have a responsibility to be here tonight, I did provide her a statement and shared that I would read it this evening at this meeting in support of her. So my statement is October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which was launched in October of 1987 to connect and unite individuals and organizations working on domestic violence issues. As superintendent of our WSESU, I support Kelsey Rice's initiative to bring more awareness to our community. It is important to identify and promote current resources of support that are available in our community, while also creating more awareness of the effects of domestic violence. Ultimately, moving forward as a community to identify more resources that are easily accessible to victims of domestic violence will be necessary and hopeful for future outcomes. So that's what was shared for Kelsey to present to the select board team.
Thank you, Mark.
Panorama student climate work has begun. Christopher Overtree has been engaged with us in leadership meetings. He has since been meeting individually with school-based teams, including school principal, counselor, and other staff members. So that work is ongoing. Paul Smith and I will be meeting with Chris on Friday to kind of do a review of those meetings and lock down next steps in terms of a timeframe. But we are moving in collaboration with Chris, which has been really good. Update on Oak Grove leadership. We have not been able to hire an assistant principal in terms of just the candidate pool. We have not had a pool to meet that need. Mary is essentially on her maternity leave right now. No news to share yet, but she's essentially on her leave. So what we have put together is John Gagnon, principal of Guilford Central School, will be a point administrator to support Oak Grove. He will spend 2 full mornings a week at Oak Grove. John, Mary, and I have met with Catherine Mesa and Tricia Hill to identify more responsibilities that they will take on. Tricia Hill is the administrative assistant. Catherine Mason is the school counselor. So we've come into agreements with John, Catherine, and Tricia around taking that lead and identifying ownership of duties. I myself will also be part of that process in terms of being somebody to communicate on a regular basis to help see through the day-to-day operations at Oak Grove. And as is just the climate of Bratttown elementary schools, we always have the support of the 3 Bratttown principals, have a history of working closely together. So Kate and Kelly have been identified as phone calls that Catherine or Trish could reach out to if I'm busy, John's tied up with something else. So we're kind of slapping it together. But that's where we are. And we're committed to not interrupting Mary. She can enjoy motherhood.
Sleep.
So today we had was a teacher in service day. So one of those full days dedicated to professional development. I wanted to give an overview of how we approached planning for this day and identify PD topics. This is not a presentation. We'll do that more completely later in the school year. But I think a lot of people think, oh, it's another day off for kids. And don't actually have a deeper understanding of how we're using the time. So Bryn, as our new curriculum coordinator, has done an amazing job communicating needs and receiving feedback from administration, the teaching staff, and she developed a slideshow essentially just highlighting the topics that were covered today, the presenters who provided that professional development, many of which are teachers within our school district. So Paul's going to surface through just kind of a really quick look at the way today went and how it was organized. And Brenda, feel free to jump in and share some sentiments.
Yeah, I think we offered in total about 26 different sessions for teachers across 6 different locations at our schools. And it was the first time many of our teachers have had a chance to meet in person like that since March 2020. So we definitely got lots of feedback from folks, and it was so nice to be together again and have that cross-school collaboration and opportunity to work together. Because we are implementing in many sites new math and literacy curriculum, which we will talk with you about in coming meetings, we really identified the need for teachers to have time to dig into those systems and work together to gain knowledge, to be able to feel more comfortable with that, and to be able to work with their grade level peers, especially for single strand schools that don't have another second grade teacher, for example, to collaborate with. So we developed a menu of options. We're also very mindful of what our school counselors going to be doing, what are our nurses going to be doing, what are our PE teachers going to be doing, wanting to make the offerings relevant for everyone. Some sites also continued some of their trauma-informed, UHS did their trauma-informed Act 1 and Aaron's Law training. Windham Career Center did an important Stop the Bleed training. There were nurses training. So anyway, we gave all staff members an opportunity to look through a list of curated options. And I think it's up there, Paul, if you want to kind of share how that went. Sorry about the screen request again.
I think I got it this time.
So this was shared with staff. Drafts were shared with administrators as well, where people could look through and see if they were, depending on their position, some potential offerings for them. And then we had sign-up sheets. We hired some trainers from the curriculum that we're using, the programs that we're using, and so those had limited capacities. So there's a look of an angling of how many people could fit in which sessions. Yeah, but generally we've had some pretty good feedback. It's been a long day. But yeah, folks can click their role and see offerings that were really specific to what may be relevant and helpful. It was really important that we gave educators some voice and some choice in what felt most relevant and useful to them right now. Just in the same way that we wanted for our kids, the way that Beth was presenting about trauma-informed practices today. So that was an element of the day. And we'll survey our folks this week and see how it went for everybody.
So all teachers receive a survey. Do you got formal feedback?
It's going out tomorrow.
Great.
Anyone on the board have any questions? I would like to ask, is this the format where you have like clickable links? Is this the first time having that format where administrators and teachers can access these things? Is this a new way of presenting it to them, or?
My memory serves me when I was a teacher, the last time we did this in the spring of 2020, there was a PDF file with descriptions, and then there was like a sign up genius online where people could sign up for different sessions until they were capped.
I would say the clickable link thing, that's kind of almost our standard way of business at this point in many of our schools, just because there's so much information and we want to be able to give people the background information to make good decisions for what's most relevant to them.
My other question is, so you have a number of, so assuming that someone, a school nurse, for instance, clicked on that and
if a school nurse clicked on it, it basically presents a really nice slide saying, here's what we're going to hope and expect that you do today.
So
Here's where it's located.
Is it one thing that's being offered? I mean, or does it depend on which one they click, or?
It was a little bit of a choose your own adventure depending on what you click. So nurses, for example, got training with Rebecca Olmsted today all day on really essential trainings that were really helpful to their needs. Some other folks had a choice to either do a full day session, which was a real deep dive into a topic of interest, or to pair together a morning session and an afternoon session that might have been different sessions based on what their needs were.
So I guess my further question is, does this provide, if they had to pick your adventure, it sounds like that was the term that you used, are there things that they may be choosing not to do today, but that they may choose in the future? I mean, does it show up?
That's a great question. So one of our survey questions for tomorrow to teachers is, would you like to repeat something like this again on a future in-service day that's in the schedule, so that we may offer a similar menu of choices? That if you didn't get your first choice today, or if you went to a nurse's training this time, but next time you wanted to do, restorative practices or race at the intersection, that you would have another opportunity to do that. And we also asked teachers, what else maybe would they wanted to do today that they didn't have an opportunity to do that wasn't on the menu?
Wonderful.
I will add that the choices are a combination of required trainings, for instance, special ed law or Act 1, and the trainings that will move our recovery plan, our continuous improvement plan forward. That it's sort of, sometimes we have to make time for those required sessions, but we also want to make time to implement the things we've got in our planning documents.
There's an example of that from this morning, that a music teacher was really interested in doing play-based education, which was a full day session, but it was also really important to go to a music departmental meeting. So they chose to just do half of the play-based to get that perspective, and then also prioritize the opportunity to talk with other music teachers in the district.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to?
Okay, thank you. Brad. Kelly, you had also asked me to reach out to the faculty council of the UHS to report on the positive initiatives happening at the school. It's kind of late in the week when we got the request. There was no school on Monday. Teachers were in PD all day today. Really didn't formally get a chance to put that together. I did ask maybe Ricky to highlight a few things. But we can come back to it on the 25th.
I think, and please Hannah, help me with this if I'm missing something. I feel like in a lot of ways, school felt really normal for the first month, the first so far of the school year. Like we did a lot of the normal things. We had a spirit week, we had a pep rally, we did picture day, we did open house. So we did a lot of the normal pre-COVID things that that schools used to always do in person, and engaging people in a lot of different ways that way. So I think that's some of the good stuff, is that like things are feeling a little bit more normal. That's my perspective on it, but I think that my peers would support me on that statement. And then many of you probably saw the newspaper over the weekend about the recognition for Special Olympics that came up, which was like a wonderful positive thing. And last Friday we had a school-wide assembly during ACE. Everybody was outside in the bleachers of the football field, having the presentation, and then there was a big game on the field together, little rock, paper, scissors competition and narrowing it down and all that kind of stuff. So there was also fun mixed in with celebration, which is a really positive thing. And then there's some stuff coming up. Oh, also last week, the STEM group went and visited Keene State for a STEM field trip to go look at STEM things. And then coming up later in October, there's a reality fair that Leland and Gray is hosting that students from our independent living class and others will be going to. That's a positive upcoming thing. There's also a portfolio day at Greenfield Community College with art students. There's some music stuff going on. So there's like sort of like field trips and things like that. Again, that more normal stuff that we used to do is all coming back and feels really positive. So that I think the students are getting an experience of really what high school is like pre-COVID and not crisis-based.
Thank you.
That's it.
So then we are moving along to the fiscal report. Do you have anything from?
Sure, just a brief report. So the Finance Committee met at 5 this evening, and we reviewed 4 things. Year-to-date fiscal report, the Whetstone Village property status, and then Christina Naylor joined us as part of the Budget Committee. So just a quick synopsis of that agenda. I reported our budget of 61 million has been spent year to date, 10,246,000, with encumbrances of 32 million for all of those contracts that we've committed to. So we're in a typical position at this time of the year. I mentioned that our assets are 11.5 million, our liabilities about 2.2 million. So we're in a very favorable financial position in terms of equity, about 9.2 million. As far as the Whetstone Village update, basically Jerry Carbone from the Whetstone Village Association joined us with another representative. Do you remember? Yeah. Kathy. So I Kathy. And they acknowledged a mutual interest in the district's attempts to divest of that property that was acquired in the year 2000 as part of a career center construction trades project. Spent a long time trying to find an interested party to acquire, but I think we've got 2 strategies now that appear to be on a path to the district no longer either no longer owning or ultimately no longer paying the association dues, the annual association dues. So that was a positive thing. Christina Naylor, as part of the Budget Committee, indicated that Maggie Foley is interested in returning along with herself for the work that they did in the Budget Committee collaboration and report. And she's reaching out to the other members from Putney and Brattleboro to see if they will also renew their work with the committee. So I think that's it. We talked about the warrants and pay orders, and that was approved by the committee as well.
Thank you. Tim, you had your hand up?
I was going to ask if the same group is coming back for the public advisory group, and you indicated that Christina and Maggie it was a great group last year. I hope the same group comes back. For the public to know, there's one person from each town that represents the public budget advisory group. And last year they did a terrific job.
Anyone else from the board? You were done, right?
I am done. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to cut you off. So anybody else from the board have any questions, comments? Okay, anybody from the? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Frank. So now we will move on to new business. I will.
So there are 2 policies that the Policy and Amendment Committee are presenting for a first reading this evening. And again, that means it's a 10-day warning period. The first one is E8, Tobacco Prohibition. And the changes to it in bold blue is the addition of juuling and other vaping devices. And the bold indicates a decision by the policy committee to retain wording that the VSBA says is unnecessary. And so we really want to retain that wording, as well as the change from his/her to the gender neutral there. So that's E8, tobacco prohibition. And the second policy is F39, students experiencing temporary housing and insecurity. Thank you to the representative from Brattleboro, Lana Dever, for forwarding this policy to a colleague of hers at Youth Services. I've invited that colleague, Sarah Ventura, to attend our next policy meeting. She has some concerns about the wording of the policy, some minor changes, but I need her to be more expansive about what her concerns are. And so the next policy meeting is Monday, October 17th at 3 p.m. in person and via Zoom. And the changes to date on F39 are the addition of guardian. So it doesn't just say parent, but it says parent/guardian. So those are the two policies. It's for a first reading. Please take a look at the policies and communicate with any member of the policy committee, as well as any board member. And the members of the policy committee are Tim Maciel, Deborah Stanford, Liz Adams, David Scholes. Sorry, lost that one, David Scholes. All right, so, and any board member, Mark Spino regularly sits in on those meetings, Paul Smith does. So send an email at, I'm sorry?
Barbara
Nowakowski, absolutely. So thank you. So it's a little fog in my brain. So send an email and we will accept all comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move on to new work section of website.
We want to put it up there. Sure. Just kind of give an overview of what we're looking at.
We got all their comments.
So we're at a pretty good point in terms of rebuilding the website. A little behind schedule, but I think that was to be expected. What we'll provide for you tonight is an update on the school board section of the website. And essentially what has been done is current materials on our old website has been reformatted in a more organized, easily accessible way. So we'll start just by a show and tell, get your thoughts and impressions. And then we could think about next steps, which would essentially be, hey, looks great, just keep going with it. Trust you and the consultant, or let's identify a day where some board member representation can meet with the consultants down the central office, with Paul, myself, maybe Gary Parzak, Frank, Barb, and just have a back and forth discussion and give and take around ideas. So.
Just getting there. You can see I'm hitting the limit of my tech skills here. And there. So this is a mock-up of the site that the company that we contracted with have set up. And you'll see one of the sort of this bar is actually gonna float as we run through it. But on school boards, one of the things we wanted to do as an upgrade from the other board is disambiguate WSESU, WSESD, VTSD, because it's really hard for people to keep track of that. So we actually wanted to spell them out. The notion is that we would have a school board's page. It takes a while. It's on their test server, so it's not as quick as it will be once we get it up and live. and talk a little bit about governance overall in WSESU, explain a little bit more about how boards work as the first introduction for the public to look at the school board pages. So Vermont school systems are governed by local school boards that provide oversight, policy guidance for school districts, parentheses covering one or more schools, and supervisory unions covering multiple districts. According to the Vermont School Boards Association, the job of the school boards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's sort of a quick, sort of a short, here's what boards are all about. Here's how school governance works. And then a little bit about the schedules. Most school boards determine and publish the pattern of their regular meetings, like for Thursdays on website and in town offices on a yearly basis. However, agendas for regular meetings must be posted online. So a little bit more background on how the meetings work, how public comment at board meetings work, and then a sort of general statement about open meeting law. So trying to, for all of the boards, get that front loading of some information about how this is all supposed to work. And then for each of the boards, more like what we've seen go to, say, the school district board, you can see a sub-menu with those things that are on the board websites now. Minutes, agendas, the members' documents, policies, priorities. The priorities is an added one because I think most boards are doing some sort of goal setting, particularly during the summer prior to the year starting. And this would be an opportunity for boards to, in a sort of very short little blurb, describe what are the goals for the year. And that could get upgraded on a yearly basis and give a sense of where does this particular board want to set its priorities. So it's a new piece that isn't in the old website, but we thought it might be a useful piece to add, and then also a piece about the presence. So we could go to, say, the agendas, like we do with many of us do for the regular board meetings, and get those agendas in place. It's essentially the same text, it's just a different background that we're using. So what we tried to do in general was pull from the old site, but also frame it in a little bit different way and provide a few more drop downs so that people can get to it quickly. So this would be accessible right off the main page of the WSESU main page. You can drill down, hit this and drill down to the specific menus that you want from the front page, rather than having to go to these separate places. That's it in a nutshell.
It would be nice to have a link to the BCTV footage there as well, and then also some resources, I was thinking. So either frequently asked questions or a link to Robert's Rules of Order, or a link to Vermont's open meeting laws.
Somebody write this down.
Oh, no, I can send it an email. I don't have to say it, but I will also reiterate this in an email.
Great. Sure. Oh, sorry.
Jody. Jody, as a person that is very frustrated using an old one, the first thing I want to do, first of all, I have to figure out, do I start with WSSU or do I start with WSESD, and to get to a page? And then I end up, there's so much scrolling you have to do to get to what you want in the agendas. Now, I can't read this. Is that green line up there? Is that where the WSSU and WSESD is?
The line up at the top
is
school boards. If you click on the school boards, you get that background information. Or if you know what you want, you can go straight to one of the three each of the boards.
And that's in the beginning, right
off the front page.
That would be very helpful to me. Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure, maybe I missed it. Is there, since the SD board and the SU board have very different responsibilities and authorities and whatnot, is there something on there that specifically outlines that? I mean, I don't have my glasses on, so
this second paragraph, I'll read the second paragraph. And one of the comments I made to the web developers is, I would get a little larger font size. Golly, that's small. In Windham Southeast Supervisory Union Board governance is divided between Windham Southeast Supervisory Union Board, parentheses, consisting of representatives from the other two boards, the Windham Southeast Supervisory District Board, parentheses, consisting of representatives from Brattleboro, Duncan, and Putnam, and the Vernon Town School Board, representatives from Vernon. So trying to really nail down here's who goes where. It's in text here. I mean, as I said, I'd like it to be bigger text. I wasn't sure, this was created by me. I just wanted to sort of do a balance between the detail that you want to understand. Oh, no, I want the SU board for this item.
Right.
And too much text. Right. So this was the compromise. Absolutely can be edited however we need to.
If it's in there, then that's great. I was just hoping that, I know that in the last number of months and probably even longer, I think it's confusing.
Sure. And then it goes on to say the WSESD board governs district-wide operations, including WSESD central office, special education, transportation, and other areas of schoolwork identified in statute or table of policy. The SPD board governs operations for the following schools. The Vernon School Board district operations for Vernon Elementary School, WSESD and PTSD board members are elected at Martin Town meeting. Elected board member term varies with 2 or 3 term gifts.
Thank you.
So try to front load that.
Sometimes the notice to the entire community is extremely important. Mark sent a very powerful message about the investigation to the school community. Things like that should be really front and center as soon as you click on the home page.
It's good feedback.
So a news ticker of some sort might be because that is one of the options that we have for a site like this is a news ticker that would be located on the main website, some splash in here somewhere. That would, and then this is also a way into the school boards, our schools. So somewhere in here could easily be just a ticker that would have important news items, including, say, information from the superintendent or breaking news or celebration of the Special Olympics. That sort of thing. Here's the secret of a good website. Somebody's got to be on top of it all the time. Somebody's got to be feeding that, giving stuff to that news feed, or else it feels like it gets stale really quickly. So as we do a website, we've got a balance between the important static information that we can put up there and maybe change once a year, and the stuff that we've got to get on a regular basis. And I don't think we've entirely who's going to be regularly uploading that information, but I think we can get to it. Okay.
I think it's nice to have that. I'm actually very impressed that might be a possibility in the event that something happened. Like when the schools were shut down and there was so much stuff that people were questioning, that would have been great if we could have had something like that people could have, or things like that, So I'm pretty excited about the
I'm loving this right on the front page. This is like, we want to get to school. There it is. And it's pretty.
And we are updating the pictures. They're a little.
Yeah.
Hey, Paula, can I ask a question? It's
sure.
Michelle. Sorry, I've had my hand up for a bit. Are you, no, you're getting so much feedback, and I know that there's so much more just because both the SU board and the communication council had started to, go around to people and get feedback at like different points when we were entertaining this. Are you planning on looking for specific feedback, or do you want us to just throw things at you? Like I'm thinking about contact information was a big one, a calendar that could be seen easily that was updated with, when the board meetings are, having like one address so people don't have to look for 10 board members, and even having an anonymous way for parents to submit something to the superintendent or board. So I just know that there were things like that people were looking for that felt like it would be like going right for the point. And so I just didn't know, you guys, are you going to just keep working on it and showing it to us, or were you going to poll people?
I think sort of there's 2 answers to that question. We do kind of feel like we want to get it up reasonably soon. So I would say throw that information to me. I have been and will continue to be the funnel to the website developers. And once we feel like we've got most of those solved, we want to transition into them giving us the tools to do editing going forward. So I think it's much more efficient to get a bunch of edits in initially, but at some point we do want to switch over to, okay, we'll take the ongoing update as our responsibility. That's sort of in the contract with them that they, at some point, they're going to say, okay, here it is. Here are the templates you can use. Here's how you edit the templates. Here's some ideas for further development. It's your baby. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I think there's.
Ricky had a question.
Okay, Ricky. Did you have a question?
There are multiple Rickies in the room, I think. So are you addressing me or a different Ricky?
I'm sorry, I am addressing you. Did you have a question?
Yes, please. Thank you. I am interested in if the members section will have photos up of the board members so that they are more easily identifiable.
You want your question?
It's not online.
I think that is really important to have more transparency and accessibility and accountability to match a face to the name.
I think there are some privacy concerns.
There's no privacy, like they are the elected officials. Like people are supposed to be voting for them, and like I think that their constituents should be able to see who they are. Just like all of the meetings are videotaped.
Well, I guess that might be a conversation for further board, a topic for further board conversation. Thank you for your question.
Ruby has a hand.
Ruby?
Hi, Ruby McAdoo, PCS parent. I'm also on the Communications Council. And I know we want to wrap this up, but I see, or it looks to me like the board section as the board's, website has now, includes board committees, in their agendas. They're just kind of worked into the listing of agendas and minutes and things like that. And the leadership councils have a different website and a different section entirely, even though they are, I think, committees. And it just, I don't know that you don't have to, I realize it's like putting you on the spot and it's still a work in progress, but it'd be really good to understand that differential. And also I'd like to ask that you consider how to restructure that, as someone on the Communication Council that posts like agendas and things like that, it on Facebook, when I go to find things there, it's very, because it's all the committees are worked into the board stuff, it's hard to really pinpoint where there's a board meeting. And so in my mind, it would make much more sense to pull out the committees and have a board committee section that's completely distinct from a board meeting. And in that respect, you could potentially wrap in the leadership councils into that committee section, so people understood more exactly that the leadership councils are a subset. They are a committee of this board, unless I'm completely wrong in that. But so that's my comment, Paul, and thank you for showing this. And you don't need to show us where the leadership council stuff is, but I think that would be something that would warrant some consideration.
Great, thanks. Definitely take that into consideration.
I think we've got some good feedback.
Yeah.
Then we are no more. Did we have any more questions or comments or not? Okay. So we will move along to the board training. So the first thing is we have one more restorative process training with Mel Motel. The last one was on September 12th. She has requested direction related to the goals and content for this last training. If we want to make it the last training, if we don't, we can certainly discuss that. So please feel free to send me your thoughts regarding that, and we will send out a doodle poll, see if we can, get that scheduled. Yes.
There's been a very valid question about whether board trainings should be public meetings or not. This is a good question, and it's been asked in other school districts from Oregon to New York. From what I could find, generally, board trainings indeed can be private and not open to the public, as long as they don't address public district business. That's clear. And in fact, the Vermont School Board Association would not promote private trainings on topics like communication and team building and norms of behavior if that were in a violation of open meeting law. So I just wanted to clarify that from what I can tell from my little research, it's a valid question whether training should be under open meeting law. And as far as I can see, they should not.
Thank you, Kim. Anyone else? Okay. So then we move along to the VSBA training. They have secured a different training facilitator. I did send out some information to all the board members on the different facilitator. And also regarding further VSBA trainings that are being hosted by the WSESU board. So I'm looking to find out if the SD board members want to continue to participate in the VSBA trainings that are being hosted by the SU board. And if so, dates that were mentioned were November 16th and 17th. So if people can, board members can let me know what your thoughts on continuing the training with this facilitator. And if so, if either of those dates work. Any other comments or questions? So then.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time unmuting. I was trying to raise my hand on there. I think there were two other possible dates. Those aren't, I just wanted to say those don't have to be permanent if it's going to be too conflicting for people. I don't have that email pulled up, Kelly. I don't know if you do, but one of them was going to overlap with a regular SU meeting. So it must have been the second Wednesday. And the facilitator, Kenesha Williams, she's from Washington, D.C., has 23 years experience with the National School Board Association. So the reason it's 2 dates is to do like larger collaborative and try to get more done and get use up her time wisely. She would come and do an overnight and we would do back-to-back trainings, just so you understand why there's multiple dates.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So now we will move on to the last item on the agenda, which is board ethics discussion. So I will entertain a motion to censure the board chair for allegations of ethics violations.
So moved.
I think we should motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can we do that?
I'd like to move that we extend the meeting by 20 minutes.
So I second.
All those in favor of extending the meeting by 20 minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Point of clarification, are you making a motion to censure yourself?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm not making the motion. I was entertaining.
Entertain.
Someone else would
Thank
like
you.
to make that motion.
Thank you.
I made that motion because the motion is required in order to have the discussion.
Is there,
Can I just ask?
We need to address the times.
Yes, that's very important.
So,
Yes.
all those in favor of extending the time for the meeting for 20 minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll say no, just because
Me too, Nay.
a repetition of too many nights. I've been here since 5
Okay.
o'clock.
Well, I hope that this is the
So
last part.
we have to learn how to do things more expeditiously.
Fantastic. So that means that we need to take a roll call. All those in favor of extending the meeting by 20 minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And that's Deborah and Ann and Lana and Tim, were you?
Here.
And Liz,
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Okay, and Sean, you
I'll
were
say
saying,
no, yeah.
okay, so. Okay, so that.
Kelly, yeah, I'm
Thanks,
also
Emily, I'm
saying,
sorry. You were in support of that?
no, I don't think that I can keep staying on, but I'll stay on as long as I can, but so I'm saying nay.
Okay, so Sean and Emily opposed. Thank you. So now, can you make the motion again?
I move that this board take steps to censure our chair under ethical violations.
And I will pass the chair to Tim
Is
so
that
that
seconded?
so that I can second it and I can speak to it.
Is there a vote to approve the motion? Oh, no.
We have discussion now.
Okay. I realize the time, but I need to take 3 minutes for some important reminders before we begin this. First, I'm presiding over this because the vice chair is not here and the chair does not preside over her own motion for censure. First, at no time may any board member comment on or mention privileged or confidential information, whether presenting allegations or responding to them. This includes attorney-client privilege discussions during executive sessions and applies to all attorneys. We've been lax about this, but we cannot violate attorney-client privilege. No one then should repeat anything that any attorney said or wrote to any board members, or anything any board member said or wrote to any attorney, either directly or indirectly. For example, and this happens too much, if someone were to say, on the advice of an attorney, I did X, Y, or Z, that implicitly reveals what the attorney's advice was. And this is a violation. I do not want to interrupt anyone with point of order, but I will have to if I believe that privileged information might be or has been brought up. Protecting the privilege is important for legal and ethical reasons, and we must all take this responsibility seriously. Second, we've been rather loose with parliamentary procedures. As part of the meeting, we have to follow the parliamentary procedures, Robert's rules very strictly. And as a reminder, to participate in the debate, the presiding officer, Kelly Young, must, as she did, relinquish the chair in debate and cannot resume the chair until the pending question, the motion is settled. No member may speak until recognized by the presiding officer or me. No member can speak more than twice to each motion. No member can speak more than 5 minutes for each time speaking. All discussion must be relevant to the immediately pending question. All remarks must be addressed to the presiding officer. No cross-debate, cross-conversation is permitted. Debate must address issues, not personalities. No one is permitted to make personal attacks or question the motives of other speakers. And last, I will try my best to alternate between those speaking in favor of the motion and those speaking against. Following discussion by all members of the board who wish to speak, I will allow members of the public to speak. Per Robert's rules, I have the authority to limit public discussion to 12 minutes, with each member of the public allowed no more than 3 minutes. Are there any objections to these time limits? Okay, then let us begin the debate. The motion has been made to censure Kelly Young, our chair. Is there discussion?
There's a hand. Michelle has a hand up.
Oh, Michelle, you have the floor and you have 5 minutes.
Well, I just have a clarifying question first, Tim. Did I hear you? You're saying, sounds like what you're saying is that, I guess I'm not quite catching what you're saying about the attorney piece. My understanding is that we can we can't share confidential information, but we can certainly reference information from our attorney. We've done that multiple times tonight. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page before I start talking. It sounded like you were saying that no one.
I'm glad you brought that up, Michelle, because that has been a violation, really. We should not reference what an attorney has said to us. That is attorney-client privilege. And for ethical reasons, we cannot do that. We can't say, well, my attorney told me. It's a violation. I can't be clearer than that.
Okay. Okay. I think, well, I guess but I'm thinking of an example earlier that was completely relevant where we just explained what should go into a motion and that was read. And that's like providing information.
I caught that and I almost made a point of order, but.
Did you get the information from an attorney? Not trying to trick you, but this doesn't quite jive with my understanding. So that's why I'm asking.
This is the proper procedure.
This is a proper, okay. I'm a little confused. I had requested this topic so that I could bring forward my own thoughts and concerns that had nothing to do with any one person, certainly our chair. And so to talk about our board and decisions of the board.
Are you asking for the floor to begin your?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm going into it.
Okay, Michelle, you have the floor.
Okay. I believe we're a board that can demonstrate to our community that if we don't see eye to eye, we understand the importance of pausing and checking in. And when we move forward with resolution and better understanding. As for board operations and differing understanding of operations, I don't believe there has been malicious intent in situations where we may not have operated appropriately. I don't want to address discrepancies of our operating protocols to imply distrust for our board. But if differing outlooks begin to impact our working relationships with one another and then trickle out onto the public floor, we need to pause and get on the same page. We need to demonstrate to our community that we can openly discuss issues of concerns in ways which we might improve, and the ways that we can openly discuss our concerns, ways to improve, and cultural dynamics that might be addressed that silence a minority voice asking questions. I believe in the integrity of my fellow board members, even when we haven't communicated well, and that's on full display. And so I simply had gone through and have wrote specifically from our code of ethics and just noted areas in which I found deficiencies. So under acting within the scope of my official role, we have the hiring of attorney Kendall Host without communicating with the board or being authorized to do this, and the board approval is still pending and can be corrected. The scheduling of a restorative practice training without bringing it before the board for discussion and vote. Under abiding by the consensus of the board, the BUHS Investigation Communication Outreach Plan developed with the support of professional services, reviewed and approved by the board to be forwarded to the superintendent, was not forwarded but tabled with no discussion or explanation. Under give no directives as an individual board member and recognizing the responsibility of the board to ensure that schools are well run, board members received word several weeks later that a superintendent directive was sent in the place of the board approved communication plan. The document was outside board scope, accompanied by a letter representing a message from the board in we statements instructing what implementation might look like. As a board member, I had never seen these documents, did not contribute to them, and would not have voted to move them forward. They contained confidential SU information that had not been shared publicly. Requests for information on where the document came from, what happened to the communication plan approved by the board, and who the authors were, and if professional services had been utilized in its creation without board approval were never answered. A group of board members met with the superintendent to further discuss implementation of this plan. There was no process in selecting or authorizing that representation, and no update was offered to the board as a result of that meeting. Come prepared and attend all regular scheduled meetings. Repeated questions regarding the above topics of the superintendent directive and the communication plan have never been answered. Requests to be updated on the executive session in which the board took up some discussion was denied. I was told the decision was made by 9 members, and therefore I was not entitled to that information as the decision was made. Board members voted on a press release without being informed that the press release was in collaboration with some agreement or plan with administration that not all board members were informed of before voting. Requests for information and discussing of the restorative practice training schedules were denied. Under adhering to norms that the board establishes on an annual basis, our board has never established norms or operating protocols in my time as a board member. We have never aligned and established kindred values as our standards to operate by. Under complying with Vermont's open meeting law, I do believe groups of board members have met outside the board to do the work of the board and discuss board work, the direction of the board, and decisions agreed on that have ultimately created influence and not allowed for appropriate public discussion, transparency, and full board participation. Examples of executive sessions being utilized when not indicated would include entering under contracts to discuss the restorative practice training that had been scheduled without permission and authorization was needed, entering executive session under a student matter to discuss student reps and mentoring roles. There's no indication for this. On August 9th, an executive session was called under contracts for an SU contract. There's no indication for this. The chair declared we went into executive session without a vote and request to record the meeting.
Point of order, please. You should not, we cannot address information content of executive sessions.
I haven't. What did I say? I said that we went in without a vote and a request to record the meeting in a roll call.
I have a point of.
I'm still speaking. I still have the floor.
There's a point of order from Deborah Stanford. Deborah, your point of order.
The reference to a letter, a narrative with a series of we statements that never left executive session. That was rejected in executive session. That's confidential.
That was not confidential. It was sent to our superintendent and became public record when it was sent to the superintendent. So carrying on, I'll let go of the rest of that executive session. Although if it wasn't a legal executive session, then does that hold the question to us? Is that confidential? I don't think so, but it's okay. There's other things.
Another point of order.
The UHS investigation.
You're past your 5-minute limit, but can you wrap up in 1 minute?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you. I believe that the majority of the BUHS investigation outreach communication plan over 3 executive sessions could have been addressed publicly outside some attorney feedback. And then under promptly addressing ethical concerns, efforts to address ethical concerns regarding the above topic, as well as omitting meeting minutes and personal attack that was interfering in my ability to fully participate in board activities was not responded to nor resolution offered. Board members addressing me with personal grievance did so outside of appropriate procedure. Respectfully voice my opinion and respect the opinions of other board. This is the last section I'll speak to. There has been public displays of misconduct and lack of professionalism regarding respectfully voicing one's opinion and respecting other board members, administrators, and members of the public. This has also happened behind closed doors, and we've received multiple public complaints. It's important we acknowledge that as a board member, I have had to pursue a formal and legal process over the course of months to have a voice on this board and to have my concerns heard and questions acknowledged. This is important and I believe needs to be addressed separately as it defines the culture which some board members have clearly been excluded. It is my hope that in acknowledging differing viewpoints of discord and appropriate process that this board will prioritize appropriate board development training so that we may formalize our expectations and standards of practice and work cohesively and effectively with every voice having a place at the table.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there other comments? And please try to confine your comments to 5 minutes. That was what, 8 minutes? Okay. Lana, Deborah, you have the floor.
Statement on the topic of ethics.
You have the floor.
Thank you. I am deeply concerned with the discourse and misinformation I have been hearing within our community. Questions around abuse of power and executive session. While I may be new to the board, I am not new to the world. My ethics and my integrity remain intact and they guide my work. I would like to clarify. Executive session is a way for our school board to discuss sensitive and confidential matters. This board is in the middle of a sexual assault investigation. I can think of nothing more sensitive or confidential. There is so much at stake and much to lose if we do not get this right. We have an obligation to act in accordance with the law and to hold confidential information with the utmost care. You have charged me with that task, and I will not let you down. The majority of my fellow board members are ethical, with a strong moral compass and the ability to work collaboratively. While I may here and there disagree with a board member on a technicality, I do not question their character or their commitment to our community. Every executive session since the beginning of my term has been warned and the reasons stated. Please refer to the minutes the posted agenda, and the BCTV footage. As to the August 9th executive session, if the executive session of August 9th, 2022 is no longer a valid executive session and the document presented is no longer confidential, I am ready to make public the statement that was presented during that session. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other comments?
Liz had a hand up, but she doesn't have.
Tim, actually, I can't get my hand up right this second. We clearly do not have time to address this long list of that Michelle has presented to us. I did some background on when motions were made, et cetera, through my own notes from executive sessions. But we clearly do not have time to address everything on that long list. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz. Deborah Stanford.
Can I make a motion about timing this evening? I'm going to move that we extend this meeting so that we actually, as late as it is, since we've begun this process, that we have some sense of closure to this process. So I'm going to propose that we extend this by 20 minutes.
Motion has been made to extend the meeting by 20 minutes. Is there a second? Seconded by Liz Adams. All in favor? Discussion.
Yes, I have a discussion. Why don't we just table it? Everybody's got an introduction. My brain shuts off about 20 minutes ago. So I might as well leave, even if you do extend the meeting. I've been here since 5 o'clock. And I harvested my potatoes today, so it's a very difficult work. I'm done. So let's just table it and come back to it and do it right at the beginning when we have enough time and everybody that has energy, do it right at the beginning of the meeting. And then people that don't want to hear it, don't even have to be here. This is, it's way off.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Other comments on the motion to extend the meeting? Michelle. I mean, Kelly.
Motion.
Kelly. Kelly has the floor.
I would like to make my statement since people have,
You want to extend the meeting?
yes.
Okay, any other comment about the motion to extend the meeting?
I would second Sean. I think that if we want to give this due time, I'm not even sure what can necessarily come out of this conversation tonight that would feel restorative and like closure in 15 minutes. So I would prefer to put it on a different agenda.
Okay, so the motion has been seconded and discussed. Is there any further discussion to extend the meeting by 20 minutes? No, then.
Are we motioning? Now Sean's motion is on the table, correct? Because it was second.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's Deborah's motion.
I mean, Deborah's motion, sorry. Deborah Stanford made the motion to extend the meeting by 20 minutes. That was extended by Liz, seconded by Liz. Any more discussion? Okay, so do we have, we'll take a vote by ballot on extending the meeting by 20 minutes. All in favor, raise your hand, please. 4 in favor, all against. John, Emily.
Nay.
Michelle is nay. So the yeas have it 4-3. We will extend the meeting by 20 minutes. Back to the debate. I believe Michelle, Kelly, you have the floor.
To clarify, I received an email with some items after I had already left town for personal business and was not able to address it at either of the previous 2 meetings. So I will go based on my categories. The independent attorney. I took it from numerous discussions with the board that the board should use an independent attorney in response to community input. I immediately informed the board of the contract signing on or about May 10th, 2022. There were no objections or questions made at any time by any board members about the need for this contract prior to this opposition. If any board member felt I misunderstood the directions from the board, that would have been the appropriate time to have a full board discussion about the hiring rather than wait for months to accuse me of an ethics violation. However, I am happy to bring it to a vote now if any board members have changed their minds about responding to the community and hiring an independent attorney to assure there is a firewall established. I will put a motion on the next board agenda for the board's approval to use the services of an independent attorney. Communication plan. A communication plan and a strategy for providing and communicating this to the superintendent, which, as the chair, I believed I was following. As a courtesy to the superintendent, I provided him a copy of the draft document for him to consider before the board discussion. My email clearly stated this document was a draft for discussion and provided to the superintendent to get his input when the board worked on a final draft. This action is purely a WSESD issue as it concerns BUHS. Since the board member from Burnham has no oversight over BUHS, they cannot have any inside information about the current investigation. Therefore, the WSESD board cannot administer this work. The WSESD board has the authority to direct our district operations, including the creation of communications plans for the superintendent. Now, I thought it was a WSESU issue. The WSESU chair would have had the responsibility to call a WSESU meeting to discuss this for the WSESU board members, but this did not happen. The WSESU board chair also did not contact me at the time to understand my thinking that was based on the advice of our attorney. Later, at an open board meeting, the board made changes to the draft based on board and administration input. Based on direction of the board at that meeting, the chair and other WSESD board members met, not a quorum, to be clear, with the superintendent and members of the administration to work on collaborating on the communication plan with an intention to move it towards implementation. There were 2 follow-up meetings with the superintendent and administration after 2 successive policy committee meetings with members of the administration team to work out details for administration follow-up on the directive. I would like to ratify the communication plans as sent marked as reflecting the will of the board from executive session. Apologize if I said too much. Allegations that I wouldn't respond to updates from executive session. I'm not sure open meeting law allows me to update another board member on executive session where we are not allowed to take minutes or even share personal notes. I'm told that members can take notes, just not publicly share them. A board member being informed would rely solely on my recollection and would not be assured of the best outcome, the best outline of what occurred. This is the reason why we have 10 members, since members inevitably will miss meetings. When I have missed an executive session, my practice has been to ask someone if there are any action items from an executive session which I must fulfill. Perhaps we need a way to do this and assure that we do not violate open meeting law. I think this should go to the lawyer, and we'll do that, assuming there's no objection from the board. Mel Motel restorative practices. As board chair, it is my responsibility to assure adequate board member training as per board policy and statute. As such, I met with members of the executive committee, David Scholes as vice chair and Tim Maceo as clerk, and with Mel Motel to determine if a restorative process training through Brattleboro Community Justice Center and restorative justice programs at youth services was a good fit for the board's needs. The board was provided with information on June 30th, 2022, that work was being done to schedule trainings, and there were multiple discussions about this at the board level. As required by open meeting law, discussions of contracts should be done in executive session, and there was no objection at the time by any other board members. The board has always looked to model lifelong learning, and it would never have entered my mind any board members would object to restorative process training with this excellent organization. Similar to the WSESU board chair, scheduling trainings for that board as part of being the chair, and as previous board chairs have also done. I undertook to schedule the restorative process training for the benefit of the WSESD board. Any legwork I did prior to the meeting was done to respect the time of our administrators and the board by only bringing things to the board which appear to be useful. At no time did a quorum engage in this work. Another category, entering executive session to discuss student mentoring possibilities, board to approve 2 students to join the board. My view is that this was a personnel decision which was made more sensitive by the fact that the personnel being discussed are our students and possibly under 18. I believe this was a correct choice. August 9th.
Okay, Michelle, go ahead. You have 2 minutes to wrap up.
I addressed concerns about August 9th and cured this at the following meeting on August 23rd. The other board member did not voice any concerns on August 23rd, so I'm surprised to hear it brought up again. I reiterate that our attorney has advised that the executive session was proper to discuss, the intended items. However, my motion, as well as another board member's motion, were not the best motion to move into executive session in that situation. I cured this by indicating the 2 citations that I could have used at the August 23rd meeting, as well as disclosing that the executive session was regarding an incident that happened at the BSBA training on August 1st. I don't have time to address the minutes, but WSESD did not have the right to go into executive session about an SU contract. Executive session was about an incident at a contracted training with WSESD members. All SU board representatives from the SD board needed to have the information to understand how the SU contract was performing for our district. Since SU members are representatives of the SD, they all need to be informed of the performance of the organization of the SU, organization the SU is contracted with, and how the SU is managing the contract to assure our district is working cohesively. I also considered a possibility that the incident may have violated the contract in some way, or the board members would want to instruct the SD representative to the SU board, that they should withdraw from the contract. How else would our SU representation inform their vote about a contract intended to our district without giving the contracted organization premature knowledge of our actions? I believe I also cured that in the August 23rd meeting. The last part, which I'll try to be very fast, but I think it directly addressing a board member on personal matters during executive session. I can absolutely state that I did not coordinate a strategy for board members to criticize any other board member for their unauthorized actions as revealed during that executive session. As the harmed board members were in their right to reach out for support within the scope of open meeting laws, I cannot control who other board members contact. It is my belief that multiple board members individually condemned another board member's action as being unprofessional, insensitive, and violating our ethics code by taking unauthorized action on behalf of the board. I personally feel that for the sake of both the SD and the SU boards, personally felt that it was imperative that we should have this delicate discussion in executive session to protect a board member's reputation with the public, and yet, as it is my duty, allow SD board members the opportunity to express their concern. In fact, some board members were not fully aware of the incident and the board member's action until the executive session, so there was no opportunity to collude before. As our board becomes a better reflection of our community, we all should be mindful of everyone in the room. We will all make mistakes if we learn to do this. My calling the executive session was done primarily to give more members the opportunity to learn from their mistakes by listening to another perspective, so we could move forward cohesively as a board. Legal counsel, I can't say what legal counsel would like, sorry.
You're past your limit. Can you wrap up?
Can I? Okay. I take great pride in adhering to all school board rules and ethics. So these public allegations are damaging to my reputation and are personally hurtful, so I must address them publicly. I accepted the nomination to chair when asked to do so out of a desire to serve the board. If the majority of the board believes that I have failed to serve the board, our students, or adhere to my sworn duty as a board member, I will gladly step down. No chairperson can lead a board without their support of the board's members. If the board wishes, I will serve until another board member has the support of the majority of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Is there further discussion among board members? No?
I have a question. I called the question.
To
censure
call the
Kelly.
question,
To
then-
censure our board.
then I believe that takes 2/3 vote to call the question. It's not big.
I'd like to speak again.
I've called the question. All discussion stops until we figure this out.
Okay, then the motion has been called to question and there's no further discussion. We will vote. All in,
No, we're voting on calling the question, right? Because there's still debate on the floor, but Anna's suggesting we don't discuss this topic anymore. So we have to vote on that.
So this vote would be to continue discussion if the question is defeated, or just end discussion.
that's right. And I believe it's 2/3 vote to continue the discussion. So all in favor of calling the question, which means ceasing debate.
Two-thirds vote to end debate.
Yeah. Is there all in favor of ending the debate? Please raise your hand. Or in favor of ending and calling the question? 5. Okay. All against? Sean? Okay.
I might.
Okay, so that means that we will vote by ballot on the motion to censure our chair.
I just have a question. What are the actions on censure at this moment?
The actions is recommend, and if the behavior continues, the person can be asked to leave the board.
Right, so it's
To recommend.
It's a recommend.
Right.
That's all it is a recommend. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yeah, and
It's just for clarification. There is no legal mechanism to remove an elected official from office in the state of Vermont. None.
okay, so the motion is to censure our chair, Kelly Young. We'll do it by ballot. All in favor of censure?
Discussion?
No, there's no discussion because the question was called.
Or I thought the question was called to end debate, not to vote on the censure.
The vote was to end the debate and that motion passed. So debate is ended.
Okay.
So all in favor of censoring our,
You said you were going to go back in for ballot?
no, by ballot.
Oh.
All in favor of censuring Kelly Young? Please.
John, would you like me to leave the room? I'm happy to leave the room.
No.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand.
Say it one more time, please. I'm sorry.
All in favor of the motion to censure our chair? All in favor to censure our chair?
Okay.
Raise your, say aye or raise your hand. Anybody online?
I don't think this is a solution, but I think that no solution isn't a solution either. So if this is Kelly's solution and that's what she wants, then I'll support her decision, but I don't think it's the right solution.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let's do this alphabetically by name. Liz Adams, what did you vote?
No.
Ann Beekman,
Nay.
Lana, Alana,
Nay.
Emily,
Nay.
Michelle.
No,
What was that?
no, I think this
Sean?
No.
does not bring us to
I'm
solution.
sorry. I already voted yes.
Oh, yes. Deborah,
No.
Kelly.
I abstain.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 May, 1 yes and 1 abstention. The motion is not passed, and I yield the chair happily back to Kelly Young.
Thank you. So before we adjourn the meeting, I will make sure to include on the agenda the motion for the approval of the services of an independent attorney. And I believe that's the only thing that came out of that. Does anyone have any other?
I would request that we have either on the agenda or, but we need to have a plan so that we standardize our operating protocols so there's not misunderstanding. I don't want to shame anybody. It's not about shaming someone. It's about understanding together what our operating protocols are so that we're on the same page so that we can have a good working relationship. So I would request and address questions and confusion. So I'm going to have to go back and listen to some of the things you said. Some of it seemed off to me. Some of it I got a little lost, but I'd like to hear and understand what you were saying. And I hope that you would want to hear. I know I was talking really fast, trying to stick to my 5 minutes. So I think that the solution is to understand where we misunderstood so that we can have repair and an operating protocol that's in place so that we work well together and we don't have indifferences. So I would like that to be taken off on the agenda, please.
Could you please put that in motion form or in some sort of wording that can be presented to the board?
I'm requesting that our future agenda.
I mean, can you send me an email with that in writing?
Sure.
So
Yes.
I can put it in on the next agenda, please.
I can absolutely do that. Thank you.
May I remind the board that at the beginning of this meeting, we had a motion, or sorry, not the beginning, a motion to employ Deborah Lee Luskin to serve as a parliamentarian to help the WSESD board learn Robert's Rules of Order. And that motion was called to question and we did not pass it. So I suggest we put this motion on again. Did we pass it? I thought we didn't pass. I apologize. Let me rephrase. It was called to question by the very board member who just said that we should have.
I didn't call the question. I didn't call that question.
Okay. But what did happen is there was a discrepancy about whether or not it was wanted to happen. And so we are in fact addressing it. It is in fact being addressed.
Parliamentary law is not the same as operating protocols. They're very different.
It will go a long way to establishing what you're talking about.
Just to clarify, she's going to be helping us with Robert's rules and making sure that we are following Robert's rules. Deborah, I'm no. Okay.
We just want to clarify that our trainings with the BSD clarify operating protocols for boards to work on. They are different topics. So I think that's normal. It's actually in our code of ethics that we'll review annually our meeting norms and operating protocols. And we've never done that. And so I actually think that that's our best first step so that Robert's rules are, technicalities, but operating protocols means that we share our values and we come together and we understand that we're all on the same page. It's really important.
We are to follow Robert's rules. Thank you. Paul, did you say that there were two people online?
Jackie and Beth.
Sure. Jackie.
Thanks so much, Kelly. Jackie Reynolds, Brattleboro. I just wanted to say thank you to all of the board members for participating. It was a long night that was clearly very uncomfortable to watch, so certainly uncomfortable to be a part of. But I do really believe that once some misunderstandings can be cleared up, that this board can work together and figure out shared goals, and that this discord that we're currently witnessing doesn't have to continue, because I am looking at a really sound group of smart, ethical people who can figure this out and work together. And I really look forward to that. And also recognize that this whole thing has become somewhat traumatic. And I'm sorry that it has landed us here, but moving forward, I feel good. A tough conversation can be the start to real healing, as you all know. And there's a nice restorative practice training coming up. So thank you, and hopefully things can improve from here.
Thank you, Jackie. Bethany?
Hi, I'll echo what Jackie just said, and I'll come back to echoing it just so that we leave on a positive note. But I do want to just point out that whether it's because I'm sitting on Zoom or whether it would have happened regardless if I was in the actual room, there is a frustration as a member of the public that when a question is called, like it just was, and the pass for calling it happens, there is no room for the public to have a say at all. Not just that other board members don't have a say, but there's also no space. Tim did say that there would be time for public to have a say in what was happening. And there was no room in that entire conversation for any type of public voice. And that feels a little frustrating on the just as a member of the public, that feels a little bit frustrating. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that calling a question like that after only 2 people have had a chance with no chance for the public to have a say or thoughts or voice anything, whether in support of or against, feels pretty off-putting from a position of not being an actual board member. That said, I will echo what Jackie said. I really trust that there are good people who are doing good work all around here. And I would really like to see a lot more effort put into better communication and operating procedures that will make you an even stronger group. Thank you.
Thank you, Bethany, for your entire comment. I'm really hopeful that having some guidance on Robert's rules will help us to be a better board and be better for the community and the students. Thank you.
There is a public handout.
Do we want to make a motion to extend it for 5 minutes? Yes. The person who has their hand up, could you please send me your question in writing, and I will make sure it is on the at the next agenda, and you will be allowed to speak to it if you feel like you need to.
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
there being no further business before this board, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 9:23. Thank you. Have a nice evening.